for a request to move any items to the calendar. So what we can do is the board members say, there's more than just all questions to say.
Check, check, test, test, check, check, test, test.
Okay.
I'm ready when you guys are.
We're on, guys. We're on.
I think they would make that request. That's why they make it go.
Ready? So for all of you in audience land, if you look behind you, you will see the black box with the red letters on air. So here we go. Thank you very much for joining us today, ladies and gentlemen, for our February 16th, 2023 regular school board meeting of the Windsor Unified School District. Could we have a roll call, please, Ms. Cox?
No items.
Here.
Malinoli Lopez. Here. Stephanie Mott.
Here.
Walker Gorman.
Here.
Rich Carnation.
Here.
Student board member Jasmine Calgary is absent.
Melanie, would you lead us in the flag salute, please?
Okay, please stand. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Superintendent Decker, is there a report on closed session?
We do have a report.
Okay. Anything other than mine?
No, just yours.
I am reporting that the board unanimously approved a settlement in the Office of Administrative Hearings, case number 2022120211. Any other questions or comments by the board on closed session? Okay, thank you. We'll move then to our open session items. Item 3.1, adjustments to the agenda. Any adjustments to the agenda, board members? No? Okay, thank you. Then 3.2, eagerly sitting in row 2, celebrating success. Principal Brian Williams and the Windsor High School team, many of them sitting behind you.
Thank you. So this is our favorite time to be able to tell the board, and I will say good evening, President Adams and trustees and Superintendent Decker and Cabinet for having us here tonight. So this is our opportunity to tell you so much about Windsor High School, and we're going to tell you a little bit at the beginning of the meeting about everything that's going on, and then at probably the end of the meeting about all of the work that we've done with our math program. And here's there it goes, my worst nightmare. All right, it's not working. So we've had quite a year going on with our visual and performing arts, and I'm going to invite 3 students up who are very excited to tell you a little bit. While they're coming up, I'm going to tell you about a program. I think most of you saw it. It was our It's About Time program, and I want to point out those clocks right there that you see behind you. Those were actually all the clocks that were in the classroom at Windsor High School, and that when we changed over to the digital PA clocks, they actually reused those clocks as part of their set, and that's quite ingenious, and as you can see, makes excellent decor. But another great part about this is we partnered up with our NCC, our North County Consortium, so that's our students with moderate severe disabilities, as well as our other CTE programs. We kind of melded everything together and almost did like a variety hour of different forms of visual and performing arts. It was quite a magical night. Am I supposed to be pointing? There we go. In addition to our visual and performing, oh, there's a spare. Okay. In addition to our visual and performing arts, we also had Steve Hoffman put on two productions. There we go, two productions, which both turned out to be fantastic. And we're excited to announce that we are able to expand his offerings next year. In addition to the normal classes they offer as strings and orchestra and drumline and guitar, he will be offering a careers in music class. That will be a CTE class, a career technical education class, for students who are thinking about majoring in music in college or doing a career in music. He'll be teaching that class next year, and we think that that eventually it could turn into the next CTE pathway. All right, so our Nueva School for the Arts will be doing their presentation. They're going to mostly tell you about it, but I just wanted to highlight that this is our opportunity to kind of come together as a district, and we will be hosting 450 middle school students from Windsor and Cali to come together to be able to watch this program, as well as having several opportunities for the public to see it as well. So I want to invite up our students who can introduce themselves and tell you about this production.
Hi, board members. My name is Zoe Arndt.
I'm Julia Olson,
I'm Manny Garcia.
and we are representatives from Nueva School for the Arts, and we are putting on currently Alice in Wonderland. And it's directed by Bronwyn Shears, who's a local director here in Sonoma County. She's worked with Elsie Allen, she's worked with Sixth Street Playhouse, I believe, and she has worked with Windsor High School on this production before. So this is, you know, a repeat production for her, a repeat production for Windsor High School. And the fun thing about that is because we've already done the show before, we kind of have this like baseline understanding of how it's supposed to go, what the different little character costumes can be. And so we can really build on that and expand to a much more dynamic show this time around, and really explore different pathways for different characters and different ideas that are introduced in the show. And so it opens March 2nd at 6 p.m. It's geared towards more of a younger audience than a couple of our past few shows. So it'll be, you know, done by 7:30, so you can still get the kids to bed on time. And so then it's March 3rd, 2nd, 3rd, and 4th at 6 p.m. And then we have a Sunday matinee at 12 noon on March 5th. So, yeah. And I am the current stage manager. I'm one of two, so I'm a junior right now, technically training under our senior stage manager, but we're compatible enough in skill and experience that we kind of share the job.
Hi, I'm an actor in this show, and I'd like to talk a little bit about I'd like to just vouch for how wonderful and amazing everyone involved in the show is, especially the director and the stage managers and the backstage people, basically everyone. Everyone's doing so much work and putting so much creativity and heart into the show. We've got a great group of actors. We've got a great cast, and I'm just so excited to be a part of the show and be able to put this on for you guys. So thank you.
Zoe, since I've seen some of the costumes, in case we don't recognize you, what character do you play?
I'm Tweedledee, and my friend Amelia is Tweedledum, so, you know, get ready for that.
I'm a senior, and I'm working in the set group, so we're creating all the pieces that you're gonna be seeing in Alice, like the throne for the Queen of Hearts, the mushroom for the caterpillar, and it includes like sawing the set pieces and sanding down just to make sure they all look like smooth and they like you can like really enjoy everything about the play without feeling like, oh, could that have been a little better? But no, you're gonna look at that and you're gonna be like, wow, this is really good. These guys put in a lot of effort because that's what everybody's doing, and they're just doing so well. And we were painting everything. We're doing a lot of good stuff here, and I'm gonna be amazed at how you guys are gonna react to this.
Manny, if I could ask you as a senior, do you anticipate once you're finished at Windsor High School, you will continue working in the arts in some way?
Actually, yeah, I'm glad you asked. I did my senior project at Raven Performing Arts Theater, and they liked my set work quite a bit. So the director, I believe there, Stephen Martin, he was asking if I was ever available, if I'd be interested in coming back, and I was like, yeah, that's an honor to be able to come back. I'm glad that someone like enjoys the work that I did to be able to invite me back there. So I'm interested in that.
Stephen David Martin has also directed a number of times with us also, so that I think there's a legacy of your predecessor, so congratulations. I heard about that. That's why I asked you.
Before you guys go, it's the March 2nd, 3rd, and 4th. What time does it start?
2nd, 3rd, and 4th is at 6 p.m. And then Sunday, March 5th is at 12 noon. And that's current, so get here like 30 minutes early is when doors should open.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Thank you very much, guys. Appreciate it.
Thank you, hope to see you there.
See you in 2 weeks.
Thank you. We're gonna have you like kind of do one of our acting exercises where you imagine that they were passing out the posters they forgot to bring. That had all of the
Check
dates,
those updates for the flyer.
that had all the dates and times for you guys to come.
And tickets are available at the door.
Tickets are available,
Online,
tickets are free. We're just asking that you reserve to make sure that we have space. But I know someone there who can get you in, whatever night you'd like to come.
Thank you.
Thank you. Also, and I'm glad Manny brought up our senior projects. That's one of the things that are coming up kind of in full force this year after COVID. And this is one of the things that kind of really separates Windsor. Just to kind of remind the board, every senior is required to do 30 hours of some sort of community service or some sort of internship, and then develop a presentation based on that experience that they then present to a panel of teachers and community members. And that is one of the graduation requirements for Windsor. It's really a kind of a culminating experience for all of these students to be able to take everything that they've learned from all of their years at Windsor Unified and be able to kind of show their passion. I mean, these are really about doing passion projects. So we're excited that those senior projects are back in full force. Now, I'm only going to kind of briefly go through Windsor Athletics because I know that our illustrious athletic director will do a more in-depth presentation for all of you. But in terms of celebrating success, there's a phrase that you're really going to have to get used to, and that's league champion. Because we have volleyball league champions, football league champions, boys wrestling league champions, girls wrestling league champions, basketball league champions. Well, okay, they'll say co-league champions, but listen, when you beat someone 3 times in a row, we're going to take the co off. And our girls soccer is playoffs bound. They're already into the second round. They'll be playing Ukiah tomorrow night, which they've already beat. So we project that they'll be moving on. And then we also have our boys basketball playing on Saturday, Newman for the 4th time. We're encouraging the students to bring brooms, which is either going to be super awesome or so embarrassing. Whatever, it's going to be a great night. So if you were thinking about what is one basketball game that we should go to this year, that would be that Newman game. It's at home, which is good because their gym is super small and lame, and ours is awesome. And we have high ceilings. Thank you. The other term that you need to familiarize yourself with is that MVP, because we have a lot of them. Taylor Boyce, she's one of our girls volleyball players, and I'm now saying girls volleyball because we've added a boys volleyball team, which will be starting this year. What's that?
It's on tonight.
It's on tonight. We're about to add boys volleyball after this board meeting tonight, if you approve it. But Taylor Boyce she's our volleyball league MVP. Hayden Anderson was our football league MVP. Dean Sexton, who's our football coach, he won Coach of the Year, his first year as a varsity coach. McKenna Murphy, she is our girls golf NCS qualifier. Did that for you. And Isabella Ward, she's our former girls coach. And Isabella Wardman, she's all league cross country and an NCS qualifier. So we have a lot of success to celebrate at Windsor High School. and not only with our fantastic arts program that we've had for decades, but also the last couple of years, we've had quite a bit of success in athletics. So thank you so much. I'm available for questions, and I'll also be available later on for a math presentation.
Any questions from the board?
All right. Thank you, everyone.
I have one other comment, and in all seriousness, we have had some racial tensions and some interactions at the middle school level for the upper grades at Cali. And I learned the other day from Grace that our circle keepers, a communications and restoration project that's been in place there, that the circle keepers are going to dispatch a team to Cali of high schoolers to work with their 7th and 8th grade colleagues there, which I think is just a wonderful way to reach from school to school in our community. And I want, in all seriousness, to really thank you and pass that along to Grace and those students who are leading that, because I think that is a dramatic community gift and capability that we have that I think they can step in, and are a little nervous about it, but it's taking their tools to another place to do good work. So thank you for that.
Absolutely, and I'm not a restorative person by nature. My kids got me a Father's Day present. It was a keychain that says "Suck it up, Buttercup," because that's kind of my mentality. But I absolutely believe in restorative circles because that's the only thing that I've seen work. And so we definitely support Vice Principal Grace Curtin's efforts to keep the circles going at Windsor High School. And, you know, it's got to be more than a class. It's got to be in the DNA of our school, and make sure that everyone knows that restorative practices is the one true thing that changes minds and changes behavior. So thank you for that.
Okay. With that, we will move to public comment on non-agenda items. Any person may address the board on any consent item or item not listed on the agenda pursuant to the Brown Act. During this period, the board will not consider issues or take action. We ask that the public comment be spoken into the microphone. Individuals will be allowed 3 minutes. And is there anyone who would like to give public comment on any items that are not on our regular agenda tonight? Come on down.
Hi, school board. It's nice to be here. It's nice to meet you. I am Diana Brandt. I'm a Spanish teacher at Windsor High. I started working in the district in 2011. My husband is also a Spanish teacher there, and he has been working in Windsor since 1994. We're also Windsor residents who love our school, our town, our community, and our young children attend school here as well. I remember when we were looking at preschools for our oldest son when he was 3, we toured 8 different programs in Windsor and Hillsburg looking for the perfect fit. After much discussion, we finally made our choice. Do you know why we chose the program we did? It didn't offer the most convenient hours, the most up-to-date facilities, or even the Montessori approach, which we would have liked for our kids. We chose it because of the teachers. We saw the way they engaged with the kids, the energy and love they brought to their circle time, activities, and daily routines. And we knew it's not the curriculum, the craft budget, or impressive facilities that would begin our boys' paths as learners. It's the teachers. They are the single most important factor in both social and academic learning. I've had concerns for years as I've discussed with friends and seen posts in local Facebook groups about people taking their students to other districts for school, pulling resources away from our district. I'm worried about the impact this will have on our WUSD budget, the teachers we can attract, and subsequently, the effect on the learners like my young boys who remained here. For that reason, I'm delighted to see that the school district budget looks so strong, and I appreciate the effort that you and your predecessors have invested to put us in the position we're in today. I only maintain a budget for my family, and I know how hard it is to prioritize wisely, especially with costs rising. Last year, the state issued an impressive 6.5% COLA and later announced it would permanently augment LCFF funding by another 6.5% for a total of about 13% increase to the district budget. Due to the continually rising costs, I understand the state will issue a record-breaking 8.1% COLA for 2023 to 2024. Together with the projected $19 million remaining in the general fund, this leaves a huge sum that you as the board need to allocate in the best way possible. For a variety of reasons, I hope one of those allocations will be a retroactive COLA payment to teachers, and for the district to plan on a substantial increase in salaries in 2024. The reason that COLA is so high is that the cost of living, especially here, and especially in 2017, has skyrocketed. If we hope to attract quality professionals to our district, if we hope to fill vacant spots in TK and other levels when we're competing against every other school in the county and state, and moreover, if we hope to retain the veteran teachers upon whom we rely to support and train the newer educators who follow, then we must prioritize teacher compensation today. I have seen firsthand the impact of a master teacher leaving our school for a higher paying position and the void that creates for students and for colleagues. It is no small loss. If our district can attract and retain quality educators, we will see fewer Windsor residents choosing to enroll elsewhere. Imagine if our job postings went out on EdJoin. Multiple qualified, experienced educators applied, and the administration could take their pick from among this talented pool. Without adequate competitive pay, this scenario is impossible. As a district, we have to invest in our schools if we expect our local families to do so. I believe you are each on the school board because you care genuinely about the education of our young people and the community they will inherit from us. Please put that belief into practice by recognizing the value that we as teachers bring to our institutions and by prioritizing teacher compensation accordingly. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Diana. Any other comments from the public on non-agenda items? Okay, seeing none, we'll close public comment. Item 3.4, we will skip for, excuse me, we will skip for tonight. Jackson Caligari, our student board member, is not here. Item 3.5, superintendent's report.
Yeah, I almost feel like this shouldn't be my my report here because I was going to talk about a lot. And we received our draft report, and it definitely acknowledges all the good work that's been done at the high school. And as I understand it, they have some nice things to say that aren't even in the report, to essentially let us know that they recognize all that we've done since the first time, and they're pretty surprised that we were ever put on probation. So there's that. We have our raw data from our employee experience survey. So over the next couple of months, Student Education will put this together. They'll break it down by site and department, and then we will share that with the board as well as our staff. And that survey is part of an initiative that we've been undertaking for the past couple of years to really improve our organization. And part of improving our organization is getting feedback from our employees. And so there's a number of questions too that I pulled out because there's something that we're really monitoring is the question: I feel that others in my organization connect with me in an honest two-way communication. And I work in an organization where employees regularly share and exchange ideas. So from what we can tell, that's improved from the first year to the second year, but we're still far away from where we want to be. And then I just want to announce, we made the announcement today, but Angela West has been chosen to be the next principal at our middle school, replacing Amy Ziegler, who's retiring after many years in the district.
Thank you very much, Superintendent Becker. Any questions of the board to the superintendent? Okay, thank you. We'll move on then to 3.6, staff association reports.
Is this more open?
No. My nose. Good evening, Board Superintendent. Good evening, Board and Superintendent. I'm Laura Gonzalez, WDA President, and I want to congratulate Amy Ziegler and Angela West. Amy Ziegler on her retirement and Angela for being our principal next year. Also, before I begin my little talk, I'm not sure if you are aware that Alt Ed is having a Pi Day fundraiser. I've already ordered 2, and one of the reps says she will deliver. Yes, Pi. How's lots of pies? I only have 1 flyer. I'll leave it with Jenny. Okay. And oh, by the way, Jenny is a big Liverpool fan, in case you're not aware, to sports today. So here I am repping Liverpool. All right. What I wanted to talk about, and it actually goes in with our public comment and with what the superintendent just said. We have a severe teacher shortage in our country, which we are all aware of. Most of the teachers here have had to give up reps or they have taken in extra students, right? There's many reasons for the teacher shortage, low pay being one of them, safety concerns, demoralization, which I want to use that word rather than burnout because I think burnout indicates a personal issue, whereas demoralization is about systemic issues. Lack of respect for the profession, shortages, which cause more shortages. As I said, we've given up our reps, we've taken in more students,
and that causes exhaustion, right? And so recently, or last year, the 2022 State of the American Teacher Report said that teachers report worse well-being than any other working adults. And since about 2017, more parents have said that they would not want their children to become teachers than to be teachers. All of this obviously gets in the way of more people coming into the program. Possible actions, most of them tend to focus on bringing people into the profession, like IDing teachers who might, or IDing paras who might get credentials, especially in areas like SPED. Also, we could ID teachers who might get other credentials like SPED, which is obviously a big need. We could promote the SCOPE program more because they offer that for people to get credentials. But since I have never really needed that, I haven't paid attention to it, so I'm not sure how well it's being disseminated to everybody else. But going to school costs money. Del Norte County, which is only one school district in the whole county, they're providing loans of up to $30,000 for parents and teachers to continue their education. And those loans can be assumed as time goes by. And also, I would encourage school board members, I assume you're part of the CSBA, California School Board Association, to get involved in repealing the Windfall Act. And there's really not enough time right now to go into the Windfall Act, but if you're not familiar with that, I highly suggest you look it up. So ways to get teachers or to get people into the profession and to retain teachers, obviously increase pay, base pay and benefits, compensate educators when they take on new responsibilities, provide high quality, accessible mental health supports. We talk a lot about students and their social emotional well-being, but we also need to look at our teachers and the rest of our staff as well. It's been a hard few years for everybody. Create inclusive, responsive, and collaborative school cultures, provide sufficient resources so educators don't need to pay out of pocket for supplies. Most of us spend hundreds of dollars, and now we get typically reimbursed even less on our taxes for what we spend. Give educators a seat at the table where decisions are made. Provide us with increased autonomy over classroom practice and student assessment. Abandon gimmicks that don't address the root of these staffing challenges, and also to pay attention not just to the people who are coming into the profession, but those of us who've been here for a while. In a recent study, I read this in an NEA publication, National Education Association, that those who are exhibiting the most stress, have the most stress, tend to be teachers of color, teachers who are in mid-career, and women, which women make up the vast majority of teachers in our country. So we need to look at those people as well, not just those coming into the profession. So I hope that you guys are having conversations about this because it is important. I do believe personally that the teacher shortage is only going to get worse. And I know that our superintendent likes to be in front of things rather than playing catch up. So this is really something that needs to be discussed. So thank you very much for your time.
Hold stay up there for a second. All of us have either questions or.
You mentioned it, you said what was the thing you mentioned? Is Windfall?
Yes, the Windfall Act.
Windfall Act.
That's a social security.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I want to make sure I had it so I could look it up.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Comments? I would welcome Laura. You had a great laundry list, and I like the report. I would hope that we engage regularly with communications on how to address some of those things, not necessarily tied solely when we get to MOU negotiations, but on an ongoing basis. You know, what are things can we do? Some of those are local solutions. You know, some of them are institutional for the, you know, similar to kind of the person who talked to public comment when Diana was talking about, you know, resources and how we allocate them. So I hope it's an ongoing and dynamic thing, and I appreciate your taking the time to talk. And I think my colleague looks like she wants to say something.
I just want to say that I took careful notes as you were speaking because I believe that a lot of the topics that you raised are really, really important. And also, these are issues that are close to my heart because I'm one of the teachers that left my position at Sonoma State University because of the many things that you mentioned. So I think that all of those topics really merit a lot of conversation.
Yes, I agree. This is going to be ongoing for years, but I just wanted to plant a seed if you hadn't already been thinking about this.
Thank you. We look forward to working with you on it, and Paul does want to talk.
Well, I do want to talk because I am a retired teacher, so I fully understand the issues that you're talking about, and I do believe that this board is committed to continuing to have discussions on these items, and you guys do such a great job, and I just wanted to thank you for that,
Thank you.
all the teachers.
Thanks.
Thank you for your report, Laura, and your comments. That will move us to item 3.7, Board of Trustees reports. Do any trustees have anything they would like to report on? I have a few things. We've been busy these last, I'll go last, I think. Down at the end.
Okay.
We'll go this way.
I don't have much to report on. I just noticed we have a bigger audience today, so I wanted to say, well, can you hear me? Okay, no? I'll just talk loud. I don't know that my mic is working, but I just wanted to say it's good to see so many of you here. I love it when we have people at our meetings and you can be part of our, well, be here for our discussions and then contribute. So, welcome.
I also had a busy few weeks. I attended, I'm the newbie on the board, so I attended a 2-day school board training, and that was a really good use of my time to try to figure out this position and what my role is. And one of my roles that I was able to do over these past couple of weeks is I met with the director of actually the president of the We Foundation, which is a nonprofit, and had a wonderful conversation with him about the work that they do, getting donations for scholarships for seniors. And they've, I believe he told me that last year they gave out $30,000 in scholarships. So that was a really, it was a good meeting. They do a breakfast, which is coming up, I think next Friday, the 24th, where they raised a bunch of money for that. So that was wonderful. Really worthwhile. And they have another program that they do that's a mentoring program that I thought was very interesting, that they pair up a high school, I believe it's a high school senior, with a 5th grader and mentor them. And I think it's a fantastic program. I looked it up on online and went to their website, and that's what kind of drew me to that foundation. The first place, even before Stephanie volunteered me to be their liaison, which I'm glad you did, because I really was drawn by these young people, and not just the ones that are being mentored, but the mentors themselves. I guess the mentees are the ones that are being mentored. They're getting something out of it. The mentors were just, they were shining on. And if you check it out, it's the We Foundation, and they have little video clips of the kids, which I thought was really cool. And one more thing, met with the principal of North Bay, met with Mr. Gecker today and got a tour of their campus and got a little bit more knowledge about big picture learning. And so it's been a busy few weeks for me. Thanks.
I just wanted to say briefly that we were all recently present at an event, and the name of the event escapes me. What was it about?
It's the biennial trustee recognition that's going.
Yes, the biennial trustee recognition, and I just wanted to mention that the speaker, was very good. He's Dr. Pedro Noguera, and he spoke a lot about equity, and I just wanted to share that I think that we need to have and keep having more conversations about equity on this board, because the most important idea about that is not just treating every child the same, but giving every child what they actually need. So meeting them where they are is very critical. So I believe that we need to keep having that idea and that concept inform us in what we're doing here. So.
Actually, Mallory, I wasn't going to bring that part up, but I have to say that we went to that, all of us board members went to that. And I went, and there are certain ways that people say things about certain topics that sometimes rubbed me the wrong way. And I'm like, and so I went to the meeting, somewhat open-minded, and I have to say that I was pleasantly turned, so to speak. I don't know if turned is the right word. Educated, enlightened, broadened, whatever. And I really enjoyed his presentation, and I enjoyed, and I could see that the way he discussed it made me feel like it's everything that we're all trying to do. We may say it different ways, and we may focus on different aspects of it, but to the heart of what we're all trying to do, and when I say us on the board, us as administrators, us as teachers, us as just people in our community, it was really enjoyable. And I really liked his presentation, and I liked, it was really helpful for me, the way that he kind of brought things full circle, to where I can now focus more on the intent of what we're trying to do versus the way people maybe say things about certain things. And I just really, personally, I enjoyed it. I like learning. I like gaining knowledge and insight on things, and it was really, really good. That said, as the board liaison to the boosters and the high school, I went to the boosters meeting on Monday, and Brian, you were there, so you can correct me if I'm saying this the right way, wrong way, but the boosters made a motion, and they are going to turn over all of their equipment, the cooking, everything, I think, but one little card reader and a computer. They're turning it over to the high school, or actually I should say to the school district. And it's going to come to us, I guess, next month to accept it or not, with the intention of letting the kids actually be more involved with running things through the culinary program and what have you for the different events and so I think that's a really good, and then they're going to focus more on key major fundraiser type of events. Anyhow, I think it's a really good transition that they're making. It's going to provide a lot more opportunities for our kids to do more things that they're involved in and interested in. So I think that was a wise move by the boosters board, and I think that's going to come to us somehow in the future some way. So good things are happening.
Great. I want to recognize my fellow board members. Two cool things Monday last week when we were at this SCO event. I don't know how many, several hundred people were there. We were the only school district that had every trustee with a +1 with our superintendent there out of 40+ school districts. And I think that's a sign of how we take our collegiality very importantly. You heard a few of my colleagues report, we have liaison assignments that are connecting us in various spider web of ways to about every aspect and subset of the district that we can. We're now in the second month and people are reaching out and doing those things. So that's a good thing. Thank you. And as Paul said, we do participate in the California School Board Association, Laura. Paul went to a training. I will share with you, Melinelli and I on Thursday this next week are doing a full day training for board presidents, both for me as the incumbent, and I really appreciate you stepping up as Melly's going to be the president next year so that we get that best practices training and liaison. One final thing is at the high school, since we're singing praises over the high school, two things that were cool. Trustee Ahmad and I were over on a Sunday when we welcomed the WASC, the certification group there in the library. It was great to see them. What impressed me tremendously is there was 10 or 12 students who came from a variety of different aspects of the school. And I think that speaks volumes. The other thing is we had, I don't even know how many 8th graders come, well over 400 on 3 days of orientation. Every 8th grader to schools that feed here, including Windsor Christian, I think, had their aspect come. Huge undertaking for leadership and the staff, and really cultivating that culture so that we have a seamless transition as our middle schoolers from a variety of different sources. Cali, our Windsor Middle School, Windsor Christian. There are some others where families can come if they're not in our direct school system. So I just wanted to recognize that because it's something that we do really well. It's institutionalized, and I think there's a lot of fruit. And so thank you very much for that. Okay, with that, we will go to 3.8, the approval of minutes from our regular January 19th, 2023 meeting. First of all, are there any amendments to the minutes? They were provided to us in our board packet. No, I would entertain a motion then to approve the minutes from January 19th.
I'll second.
Okay, that sounds like a motion and a second. All those in favor? Okay, great, 5-0 for that. Vice President Lopez, would you present the consent action items, please?
Yes, I'd like to move for approval of the consent calendar of items 4.1 to 4.11 as listed on the agenda. Are there any recusals or other requests? No? Okay, so is there a second?
I can make a second.
Are there any questions or comments from the public?
Any questions from the board on any of the consent items?
I had comments.
Okay.
Which is, I see that there's a cheer competition, they're going to nationals, which is exciting. I went to that same competition. I don't think my mic is working. Okay. I went to that same competition and I wanted to tell this story. I didn't realize so many people were gonna be here, so now it feels a little bit more embarrassing. But when I was at that competition, when I was a senior, Windsor High School, my cheer colleague on the cheerleading squad hit me in the mouth and actually my tooth fell out in the middle of our nationals routine. So I just wanted to commemorate that moment, which was about 20 years ago. And they're going again, so hopefully it's not eventful in that way. Hopefully they maybe win instead of having an injury. And I see that middle school science camp is back on with the overnight component, so that's great. And I just wanted to, I think the boys volleyball is part of the consent, right? So we are gonna have a boys volleyball team after this, it looks like. That's very exciting. And beach volleyball.
I wasn't gonna say anything, but since Stephanie brought up the cheerleading thing, I just gotta tell you, I never thought of it this way before, but my aunt passed away, so I had to fly up to Seattle, so I'm at the airport here, and the Sonoma County Airport, and I'm sitting there, and all of a sudden I hear this blood-curdling, just yelling, crying plea. And, well, I'm sorry, I should have took 5 seconds, about 5 minutes earlier, there was about 200 girls, teenage girls that were all there getting on these planes, flying to Las Vegas, and this place and that place for all these school, these cheerleading things. So then they get on the planes and they're all going, and then, you know, everything settled down. And all of a sudden that day just, you know, it caught everyone's attention. And we look at it and this mom goes, "You don't understand, if you don't get my 2 girls on the plane, the girls that are there can't do their routine. My girls are the ones that fly in the air." And it was, the whole airport just kind of like stopped. And it was interesting. I was thinking that, again, how important every person on a team is, because you have 30 or 40 or 50 girls, whatever it was, on that particular group that was flying, and then 2 girls that are part of that thing. If 2 team members can't make it, the rest of the team can't function in their event. And so it just kind of, once again, it just kind of reminded me, I've always been a team type person, and it just, again, reminded me of how important teams are, and to kids in their growing up experience, being part of a team is something that is irreplaceable, and it's a memories that last forever, even when you get your tooth knocked out. So,
Rich, we still have Stephanie's trophy, so the tooth is worth it.
anyhow, that was just,
And thank goodness we live in the era of like modern dentistry, right? So imagine, you know, the before times.
On a slightly more serious note, although the national championship trophy, pennants that are in the big gym, if you've seen them, they're sort of against they must be 15 feet long. There's a couple, they're gigantic. They're not those tiny little.
We're gonna need a bigger gym, by the way, next on,
okay.
with all the pennants.
So, on a serious note, before we take a vote on this, I will note and thank Pete Sullivan, our HR director. On 4.8, we have our comprehensive safety plans that are in there. And look, we did have a closed session 2 or 3 months ago, where there's the capacity under the Brown Act to do closed sessions for security concerns. And I will tell you, we talked to law enforcement, ambulance operators, the fire department, to get an assessment on the sad and scary issue of school shootings and school safeties, and really means and methods and how do they respond and things that are, at their request, is not appropriate to be disclosed in a public meeting. But I got it, I was looking at our agenda, and there, after the Michigan State shooting, it said above the fold, I want to make sure I get them in the right order here. Run, hide, fight?
Correct.
Run, hide, fight. And if you go to number 47 in armed assault in our safety plan, there are those 3 words again. Run, hide, fight. So thank you, Pete, for shepherding those. We take that very seriously. We're aware of it. I know the students are trained, the staff are trained. Thank you. Another thing you didn't probably plan on when you went to education training as a young teacher to be, but I'm glad we're on that. And I, for one, will always be talking about that because I think it's amongst the very difficult thing that people learn if they are afraid. And so we're doing what we can when we can to address that. With that, we'll go ahead and take a vote. We've had a second on the consent items. All those in favor? Aye. Okay, that'll pass on a 5-0 vote. Thank you very much. Okay, back to math and 5.1. Mathematics placement and courses report presented by Danielle Buckman, Assistant Principal, Windsor High School. Hello, Danielle.
Hello.
Before Danielle gets started,
Okay.
things you need to understand. So Danielle, prior to becoming our assistant principal, Danielle was a math teacher at Windsor High School. So you're going to see an issue with our data, and you're going to be like, whoa, what happened? Well, it's because I took her out of the classroom. So she is that good as a math teacher, and so we're so happy to have her here as our assistant principal. But yes, we'll talk about the data in a moment, but I just wanted to recognize all the work that she did for years as a TOSA for this district and as a math teacher at Windsor High School. And she's also the department chair of mathematics. And she said, if I do this, that she's going to be really hard for her to do this presentation. So of course I did. So thank you.
Okay. Thank you now. So thank you for having me here tonight. This is actually, I want to say the 3rd or the 4th time that I've made this presentation, but the first time that I actually get to speak to it. So I'm happy to be here to represent the data that I pulled together. Prior to jumping into that, there's just a couple things that I wanted to, provide some historical context on, especially, we have a new trustee and go back to remind you of a couple of things that we've worked on. So if we go back to 15, 16, I believe that's when we transitioned from a traditional pathway in math to an integrated pathway. At that point in time, about 15 to 20% of our 9th graders were failing Algebra 1. And that was part of the process that led us down this path of becoming an integrated school district. So that's one thing I wanted to point out. And over the years, we've tried different things to have intervention for our students, right? We've implemented Math 1 support, which was a class that our kids did while they were also enrolled in Math 1, so trying to support them that way. We also took a chance and split Math 1 over 2 years, seeing if we slow things down, is this going to be what our students need? And we realized, through various data that we discovered, this isn't what the kids need. It was essentially 20 credits that was only giving them 1 year of math graduation. So it just wasn't equating in terms of time. And the other thing that we also noticed, and Vice President Lopez, I appreciate you talking about, giving students what they need in equity, is we realized that by not having a class lower than Math 1, we weren't meeting the needs of our students. And so the most recent class that we've added is pre-Math 1. And so our students who are now coming up from the middle school and who are not ready for that Math 1 rigor, we now have that pre-Math 1 to meet their needs. So I'm really glad that we were able to add that. And something that's exciting for the summer is we're bringing in something called Math Boot Camp. I love math, so I'm excited about math over the summer, but not many people would be. And the idea with this course is to really fill in those gaps, right, that our students have for various reasons. And if they do this course for 2 summers, they earn 10 credits towards their graduation requirement. So that gives them a little bit of a cushion, right? If they have a tough semester here or there, they've got those credits to lean on, and they've also had an opportunity to fill in some of those gaps. So that's really exciting. Hopefully I have better luck with the clicker. I went with, nope. There we go. All right. So first thing that I just wanted to run through is, the adjustment in our graduation requirements. We used to have Math 2 be our graduation requirement, and since we've changed that, where it's Math 1 plus 2 additional courses, this is similar to the California requirements in that there's that Math 1 level, but we actually added on another year of math. We did this to give our students some opportunities, right? Not all of our students are on that A through G path, and that's okay. And they need to have another opportunity to still gain those math skills and work through that. So you'll see on there where we added pre-math 1. And it's still, even when a student starts in pre-math 1, they have that opportunity to get to that higher level math. It doesn't impede them at all. Having this 3-year math graduation also ensures that more of our juniors are in a math class, and it's their junior year that you have to take the CASP. So in the past, several of our students, they would be in Math 1 as a junior. Well, CASP, you have to have the standards through Math 2 to be able to be successful on that. So we feel like we're setting our students up to have this math progression to set them up for success. All right, so let's look at some data. Some highlights that I just wanted to point out first. If we look at our total students that are enrolled in math, we are sitting around the same amount, right? 89, 91, 88, which is great. So overall enrollment in math. Another exciting trend is our amount of juniors that are in math. So, in 1920, 88, and then 92, and then now at 93.
58%. Oh my goodness. What's going on?
Oh, sorry. So obviously the big thing that you notice there, right, is only 58% of our students this year are enrolled in math. And there's a few reasons for that. Number one, if you think about when these students were freshmen, right, that was 1920,
Yes.
where everything fell apart. So in spring of 1920, when they were most likely in Math 1, right, because that's the level, they weren't even in school for about 3 weeks. So there's a huge loss. And then we have to come back, kind of figure out distance learning and wrap up their Math 1, which is a foundational year in terms of math. Think about the next year. Now they're on completely distance learning Math 2, and there's some pretty tough concepts in Math 2 that you're having to go through in distance learning. Something else to consider is that this is our last year for having our Math 2 waiver, which means that some of these kids didn't even need to get up to Math 2. So if they've already done Math 1 and consumer math, they were done. Another piece to think about is this is our smallest senior class to date. So, in terms of just where our numbers are landing, we landed at 58% this year, but something to be excited about for next year is even when all of our course registrations aren't complete, we're already trending at about 70% of our seniors enrolled in math. So if you look back at the previous years, we were at 73 and 72. So we're getting right back on track. All right, so the next few slides are a breakdown of where our kiddos land in terms of 9th grade enrolled by course, 10th grade, and so on. First thing that I want to point out about all of these slides is they're based on total numbers, they're not based on percentages. So you kind of have to keep that in mind in terms of what were our class sizes. So what you're looking at here, right, is our 9th graders enrolled in pre-math 1. And if you kind of imagine a bell curve, right, and where your normal distribution of kiddos should be, they're in Math 1. And that's where, if you're, your average 9th grader, that's where we want you to land. Anything you want to add, Ben?
I had a funny joke for the last slide, but you covered it. So.
Oh, okay. All right, and so in our next slide here, so our 10th graders that are enrolled by course, ideally we want our 10th graders to be in Math 2. That means that they've been successful as a freshman, they passed Math 1, now they're moving on to Math 2. So it's great that we see that the number of 10th graders in Math 1 is decreasing. And that we do have an increase of our kiddos going into Math 3, which is technically 1 year ahead. Right, that means they did Math 2 as a freshman and now they're in Math 3 as a sophomore. So trending in the right direction here.
I bet you're going to show some great data about those 10th graders in Math 1 later on.
Yes, I can't All right, and this slide, I was really excited about the data here. The main thing that I want to point out is look at Math 1 and how our numbers of 11th graders in Math 1 has steadily decreased. That's huge. We don't want our 11th graders there. That means that what we're doing in terms of adding pre-Math 1 or the interventions, making sure that they're placed correctly the first time is working, and that number is decreasing. In terms of Math 2, that number is going to kind of hover around there, but Math 3, this is a big one, that number is increasing. Something else that I want to point out is, when we added some non-A through G math classes, we were worried. Is this going to mean that all of our students are going to get off of that A through G path? They're going to take these non-A through G courses, and then what's going to happen to our numbers? And that's proved to not happen, right? Because our number of 11th graders in Math 3 is increasing. So that's a good thing there. All right, now look at our seniors. So think back to what I mentioned before, right? Where there's only 50% of our kiddos or our seniors, right, that are enrolled right now. Also think about the fact that this is total, not percent. So even minor differences in terms of enrollment for our seniors over these years is going to show up as huge gaps in this place. This also just speaks to the fact that, as I mentioned before, not a lot of our seniors are enrolled this year, right? They didn't have to because of that waiver and it ending this year. I feel very confident in seeing this change over the next few years, especially when 70% of our seniors are already enrolled in math.
This senior class is about 70 kids fewer than our normal senior class. So you're seeing, as you said, total numbers, not percentages. So it's really kind of hard. It's an apples to oranges kind of comparison.
All right, and so next, we're looking at our enrollment by ethnicity. And there's a really large piece of this, that's shining in red that I'd like to skip to slide 12 and then circle back because I really want to speak to what you're seeing here first.
That's incredible.
All right, so essentially what this slide is here to demonstrate is that it doesn't matter where you start. Really, it's ultimately where you're finishing. And so while we might have had a higher percentage of our Latinx population in Math 1 to start, you can notice as we get to Math 3, they're at the same place, right? They've reached that same goal. And so moving forward, what we'd love to see is that both of those lines are trending upwards and that both of those lines are hovering right around that 50% mark. Because then that 50% mark means that about 50% of our kiddos are A through G ready. Not a lot of students are going to move on to Math 3, but not move on to anything else. So that's a really good indicator for us to use moving forward. I'm just going to jump back. We can look at the rest of the data. Backwards.
As you're going back to these pie charts, a 50% math A through G, I can remember 5 years ago, 6 years ago, pre-COVID plus a few years, and we were at a third, 38% A through G compliant. So while the scores are low and we worry about that to me as one of the indices that A through G piece as an aggregate has gone up by a third is stunning to me. And I like the intersection between the various demographic groups. That was a great thing to portray.
I have a question that's not exactly related to this, but I feel that it's an important question. And that is, do we have any way to measure or survey how much time students spend listening to what are their opportunities for college? Do we have any sort of tracking mechanism for that?
So one of the big plans that we put in over the last 2 years is the counselor is actually doing a 4-year plan. So they're actually not just looking at what is your immediate courses, but what courses are you taking over the 4 years and what courses that you would have to take in order to be A through G compliant. Also last year, we got the A through G grant, which allowed us to spend a considerable amount of money and also attention on making sure that we were able to put counselors in the classroom. We've added a different presentation that counselors go in to talk exactly about their ability to access college and becoming A through G compliant. We've increased the number of Spanish options that we have available for 9th and 10th graders because we saw that was one of the barriers as well for being A through G compliant is that our students were not able to, because of our course system, able to access those foreign language courses early on. And so they weren't finishing the full progression that makes you not only compliant for A through G, but for competitive for A through G. And then we also offered before and after school peer tutoring for students to be able to get help for in everything from Spanish 3 to Math 3 all the way down. And then we started offering grade validation, which hadn't been offered before. So if you had a D or an F in a class, you can retake the course again, either during the school year through Edgenuity or over summer school. And that being able to do that actually makes that course count towards A through G. So there's quite a bit of work we've done to educate our students and their parents through our college nights and things like that to make sure
I
they're
know
aware.
this is fantastic work. I'm really impressed. And when I see that, all that red, that 79.5%, what makes me think immediately is, you know, how much time are we spending talking to these kids about their opportunities in the future? So that's immediately what that comes up for me.
And that's why we showed you slide 12 to say is that if you look at the 40% failure rate that we've had historically, not failure rate, the D's and F's rate, which was actually blocking, because you have to have Math 3 to be A through G compliant, and they were actually finishing only with Math 2, and oftentimes as a senior in Math 2, with us dragging you over the finish line with a D. The fact that with this pre-Math 1 class, that we're able to now see that there's equity and parity by the time we're in Math 3, means that more students are eligible and able to go to college. So we were very excited because we saw the slide too. And we were like, oh my goodness, because with changing the requirement from Math 2 down to Math 1, we were very afraid that students wouldn't try Math 3. But the data shows out that when they become successful in math, they feel successful in math and they want to continue on. And that's something that's absolutely makes us just ecstatic at Windsor High School.
Yeah, I totally agree. And I'm so impressed. I'm so happy that you added the pre-math 1 and also the tutoring. It's just really, really important. So thank you for doing all this work.
Thank you.
Absolutely. So we can run through these relatively quickly, but you can just notice how, you know, there's more of a decrease in the red. As we continue looking at Math 2, right, we're getting more of a balance. And then again, in Math 3, we're sitting at 44 and 48%, and that's what you had seen in that line graph, right, where those numbers are getting closer and closer. And so what you have here is what our A's, C's, D's, and F's. You know, the main thing that I wanted to point out is just looking at those F's in Math 1. You know, in 1920, 8% of our ninth graders were earning an F. 21, 22, 2%, and we're still hovering around that 2% this year. So I really feel like our pre-Math 1 placement, the steps that we're going through to make sure that our students are placed accurately in terms of looking at pass grades, looking at RenStar, is really setting them up for success and decreasing the amount of students that we have needing to repeat. And so the next 3 slides are a considerable amount of data based on demographics. So the 3 demographics that I've always included, Latinx, our students with disabilities, and our multi-language learners. I'm happy to dive more into that data with you at a later time, right? As you look through there, if you have questions, I've lived this data for a very long time, so I'm happy to discuss it with you, but we don't have to do that this evening.
And this is a good time to ask the board if this is your presentation, and we can prepare whatever data that you find most productive. We've done what we've historically done, but as Danielle and I look through it, a lot of it, because we've changed the math requirements, a lot of the data doesn't kind of match our current needs. And so one of the things we're hoping tonight is we'll get some feedback from the board about the data that you want to see and the data that you want us to track longitudinally.
What comments does the board have about that?
I'll start. So if we can go back to slide 13, or the one that had the highlighting. I just had a question. I think this.
Sorry, wrong way.
Oh, it's okay.
I hit the wrong button.
Hopefully it'll come back. I think the data, I know that in the past, the data about the D's and F's has been very jarring, just when we've seen it, because I think we immediately think about that student experience. That's, you know, you see a 30%, you think about 30% of a whole grade level or a class kind of having that experience of feeling like they're failing. And what does that do for morale? What does that do? And I know that that's what you're working on, but I do see it almost looks like there might be a little bit of of increases in Ds and Fs for maybe 10th graders. And I was wondering if you could speak to that a little bit.
Sure, I took one of my best math teachers out of the classroom
Oh, right, that's what
and
you were
brought her
talking
into
about.
being
Okay.
assistant principal. So Danielle taught exclusively Math 1, so it's 158 contacts. So, and she did a fantastic job. She was spearheading standards-based grading, and a lot of very kind of cutting edge techniques and being able to do that. And then the other piece is we had this fantastic intervention plan where we're going to do some push in math, and then one of our math teachers resigned 1 week before school started. So we did not have a Math 1 intervention plan like we had planned. So that's kind of where you're seeing kind of that trend going up, but mostly it's her fault that you'll see that increase in Ds right there. Her fault in the best possible way.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know, I understand the answer. I don't know that I'm totally satisfied with it because it's like, okay, so we don't have you in the classroom and now we have more students who are having a kind of a more negative experience in math. But I know, I'm sure you're
Yes.
working on it.
So for next year, we just hired 2 additional math teachers. With one of the math teachers' jobs is to predominantly be out of the classroom, pushing in as well as supporting us, with data and making sure that no student is left behind, as well as setting up those systems and structures where it's not so teacher dependent. And I think that's kind of the area that you're kind of touching on, is the fact that, one teacher difference means that we don't have the systems in place. And so, so we are bringing in kind of a ringer that I worked with quite a bit at the middle school, who's going to help us kind of develop those pre-Math 1, Math 1 systems, as well as intervention programs. So going forward, that it isn't so teacher dependent. And the other thing that we want to work on quite a bit is our grading practices. And as well as when you don't put such an emphasis on grading homework, how do you get them to do it? And that's the nut that we haven't completely cracked yet, to make sure that the students are continuing to do their practice, even though they're not getting graded on it every single day.
This subject has been a issue for me for, quite a while. And this little graph right here is, for right now, I mean, I'm always a good, better, best, right? And this in the beginning isn't good, but this really is over here. And so I look at this and I'm thinking, okay, sweet. I don't know how you guys exactly are getting us to there, which that's not my job. That's you guys' job. And that's awesome that we're now getting that. So it doesn't matter where you started, we have a plan. And that's honestly, when I've had parents over many, many years say, hey, what is it that's so good about Windsor? You're always bragging about Windsor, right? And I've always said, we have a program for everybody. Doesn't matter who you are or where you are. If you want to be like a rocket scientist, we got that plan for you, and if you want to be something else, we have that plan for you too. Whatever you want to be, we've got a plan for you, and we can do that. And you can be the best at whatever that is that you want to do. I like that. I've always felt that we were shortchanging ourselves and our kids, which is all of our kids and grandkids and everybody else, that we weren't doing it. So this gives me hope, because I know that some of the younger kids, COVID and all that other stuff, have had some issues. I had a phone call from a parent who wants to transfer all 3 of her kids to Windsor because they're so disgusted with how Santa Rosa School District handled their kids for that COVID time. They're going, we look at Windsor and what you guys did compared to what Santa Rosa did, we go, we want our kids up there so that way they're getting what you guys are getting. So how we handled COVID, that was a phone call today. So how we handled COVID compared to Santa Rosa, I don't know myself what the differences are, other than I just know Superintendent Decker was always way ahead of everybody. So when there was someone to hire, they couldn't catch him because we already got him. So I'm very encouraged by this, because we have a program that can catch kids up. And so if you're doing that now, and if we implement what you're doing and you guys continue to work with the folks in the middle and the elementary schools, hopefully that gap will be smaller in the beginning over the years to come. And so that way the kids can take that momentum and reach even higher heights if that's the choice that in the plan they want. So I'm the first time in a long time, I'm really encouraged by what you guys are doing in the math area. And that gives me a lot of hope, which helps me to be that cheerleader that I like to be for our district out there with our kids. And so, thank you.
Thank you, Rich. And you're a coach, so you understand that growth mindset. And that's what we found is that if kids believe they can be successful in math, they will be successful in math. And that's kind of what we're trying, to kind of build that into them. Where, one of the things that Daniel kind of touched on with that math progression that we really want to emphasize is even if you start pre-math 1, take 4 years of math, you can finish with math 3, which makes you college ready. And that's the piece that absolutely had to be part of our overall plan, that it doesn't matter where you start, it matters where you end. And then Daniel also she didn't mention that we're working on some math acceleration plans in summer school as well, for those students who maybe didn't get a chance to take integrated math 1 as an 8th grader because their school didn't offer it, that we can get them caught up for a whole year if they're looking at getting that pre-AP calc course or AP calc in their senior year. So we're trying to look at it from every single direction, not just for the students that need the most support, but also for those students who want to have acceleration. Maybe it clicked in a little bit later for them and they're like, I can do this. We want them to be able to finish with those high-level courses and make them the most competitive as possible.
I did have one follow-up, I needed to make sure I understood this. So you mentioned that you're having a math boot camp during the summer. Now, at first I wasn't sure, is that for incoming 8th graders that are maybe a little bit behind the curve to kind of catch up in some fashion? Or is it for kids that are already in high school, so like they could do that their sophomore year? Or is it open both?
It's both. So the idea with the boot camp is that if you're a rising 9th grader and you've really struggled in math, you know that you're headed to pre-math 1, but you still have some holes, we'll be able to fill some of those gaps, right? So that you can start pre-math 1 and really dive in. Let's say you struggled in pre-math 1 as a 9th grader. It's a freshman only class. We keep that really small, but some of our kids still struggle. So let's say you struggled as that 9th grader and you're going into math 1 the next year regardless, then that will be the other half of the math boot camp, right? Is to help prepare those kiddos going from pre-math 1 into math 1 and to be successful.
So in essence, we are making it possible for our kids coming into high school. They're kind of getting a semester of pre-math 1, pre-math 1, and then a semester of post-pre-math 1 before that to kind of fill everything in.
Yes.
So they're really getting almost 2 years worth of math catch-up. 2 years? Yeah.
Yep.
That's awesome.
And one of the other data points we found is there's almost a 1-to-1 correlation between the grade they got in pre-math 1 and the grade they're getting in math 1, which is great if they do well in pre-math 1, they're doing well in math 1. It shows that our pre-math 1 course is rigorous. But it also shows us if you fail pre-math 1, you're going to fail math 1. And so we're able to look at the grades of our pre-math 1 students, identify them before we place them in their classes next year. And that's who we're focusing on with our math boot camps, as well as all the push-in offerings that we're going to be able to do next year by bringing on those 2 extra math teachers.
So I wanted to ask you, is it possible to, because I really think you're onto something, that's why I'm asking this question. I really think you're doing fantastic work, but is it possible to track, once again, if the students are getting, or how much time they're spending hearing about college, but not just college, but also STEM-related careers? Because I really feel you're onto something, and I think if we could track that, and also how many of our students are going on to college or a trade or technical school, is there a correlation between, this awesome program that you're running and kids ultimately going, to either trade school or college?
So one of the findings that we did receive on our latest WASC visit that I absolutely agree with and happy to take on is what we're calling core equity. And that's looking at the experience of each of the students to make sure, one, that the level of rigor is equal in every single core. So if you're getting a 9th or 10th grade English experience, it doesn't matter which core you're in, you're getting a similar experience and the similar skills. But the other piece too is to say is, with our themed cores, are we over pushing in college bound, but not thinking about college as much in a different area. If you're in Discovery Corps, probably every single thing that they're talking about is about which college you're going to and how you're going to be competitive. But is that the same thing that's happening in VA Seoul or,
Right,
you know? And so core equity is going to be a major focus that we do over the next few years. Assistant Superintendent Ferrer is leading us through a scope and sequence process over the next 2 professional development days, where we can actually identify what is every single corps doing, but then match them with the standards and come up with some common formative assessments to make sure that no matter which corps you pick, that you're getting an equal experience at Windsor High School. I mean, that's something that I noticed when I came in. It's something that WASP noticed. It's something that you noticed, and it's absolutely going to be a focus for the next, and I only say 3 years because that's until we do our next WASP report to kind of get a gauge of how we get.
Thank you.
All right, thank you so much for your time.
Okay, thank you very much. You had, so one thing you asked about reports and formatting reports.
Yes.
I think maybe one more time, pulling the sort of asynchronous data forward, maybe not, something to think about. Do we want to do that now that you've changed that? The seniors are going to drop off from the math, the waiver. I always like out of this a trend and a recommendation for us, right? It's good for us to get a snapshot and have a common situational awareness. But if you need resources to reinforce success, let us know that. If you want to say, look, we really got to turn the apple cart upside down again, and here's the cost of time and disruption of that, let us know that. So that when we get this, because all of us are very diligent looking at this packet well before the meeting to know, well, what is it, you know, as you know, we want to hear about math probably 2 or 3 times a year. But with something like this, with now that Danielle's up leading the charge from the administration office, so, you know, what comes out of, you know, the math boot camps? You know, we got a little bit of a snapshot, which was surprisingly good news, I thought, when Assistant Superintendent Ferrer said, look at these CAST scores. You know, there's some positive news in there too, if you differentiate them a little bit. So that's what my view is when folks take the time, because I know it takes a lot of time to, you know, prepare a presentation for the board. Figure out what you want from us, right? If you want to make sure we understand where we are, that's a fine thing for us to know. But a lot of times also, if we need to perhaps validate or shift some of our resource allocations, sometimes that takes us a little while to wrap our head around that. So that's always my interest, to say, you know, so that your time is valued. We ask for a lot of reports about a lot of stuff, and I wanted you all to know, since you're the lucky ones up here, that we recognize that this takes a lot of time. And to me, it should be a 2-way conversation, right? We should get back to you to say, all right, what do you need that you need us to build on for success, or to change and allocate those resources? So that's her.
As a board, you know, from the 1,000-foot view, when I'm seeing those 2 intersect, right? That was good, and I don't know that, are you guys able to, basically how I'm looking at it, I'm looking at my grandkids. How did he do? Okay, how did he do the next semester? How did he do the next semester? Is he progressing, not at grade level, but is he getting a little bit ahead, getting better? I don't know if there's a way to even chart that, other than just a parent or whatever looking at their own particular kid. But can you gross all those numbers together and say, hey, as a trend, our class, that cohort, let's say pick a grade, 3rd grade, they were doing altogether an average of 73% in math. That whole cohort the next year, they're now doing about 76% for their 4th grade. And now they're doing like 81% as 5th graders. Is there a way to track that? Or is there even a way to do that?
They're so excited that you asked that. You're speaking her language. Before we get into that, because one of the areas, Rich, is because we only test in 11th grade. And so we have added math assessments in 9th, 10th, and 12th to make sure we're doing exactly what you said. I wanted to point out this math placement right here really should say proposed math placement, because math placement is actually the duty of the board. It's board policy, and it does need to be updated because some of the language, the assessments and things that we're doing are not connected to what we currently do. And that's kind of the thing that we wanted to get input and feedback on. So this kind of shows you how we do that. And yes, we are assessing them 3 times a year to see how they're progressing in mathematics as well as language arts. But yes, if you would like that data integrated into these presentations, you don't have to tell Danielle twice to put a math presentation together. She loves this stuff. So we can present as much time as you want. It also doesn't have to be a public presentation. It can be part of a board packet that we put together and submit to the superintendent so you can just kind of see the updates.
I know Stephanie had a point, and then I want to close with Jeremy, because our architects are very patiently waiting in the back row.
Yeah. I just wanted to recognize that you've done a really great job. Like it's clear how much you care about this, and that you've really taken responsibility for making sure that none of our graduates, like that you remove all the barriers, right? That's what we learned about equity, is removing the barriers. You removed all the barriers for our students to excel in math before they graduate from our district, and I think that's really awesome. The question I had was kind of for Jeremy, but I figured I'd ask it publicly, is that kind of makes me start thinking about, okay, well, what's happening before they get to high school? And I think that's kind of what the next stage will be in looking at once we have more data and we have more of a system to process that of, okay, what are we doing there? Because that's kind of, you're taking taking all the students as they come, but we have limited visibility into exactly what's happening data-wise.
Yeah, and I think you've heard this term MTSS quite a bit, right? And it's what we're trying to set up to make sure that every kid gets what they need when they need it, to Malini's point. And at the elementary, we actually have a lot of good supports at the high school. We're a little bit nimble because we have so many teachers. We can master schedule support in there. Where we're struggling is we don't have great systems of support at the elementary level for our students struggling in math. Or struggling in other areas too, right? So that's what we're trying to work on. And we're just started to dabble in MTSS and really look at ourselves critically and say, okay, that student, what does that student need who's struggling? And come up with a plan specifically for that student. So, that's the elephant in the room, right? Yes, we're making good progress once we get to the high school, but we shouldn't start so far behind for certain students. So I hear you. I think that that's an ongoing discussion that we need to have, and please continue to hold us accountable as a district for that.
And we'll talk about it during the meeting. I think we have a special meeting on April 10th for MTSS to follow up.
And that's with other districts as well.
Wonderful. With Trustee Cogorno's pointed comments on that at this first meeting and moving forward. I didn't want you to step back. If this is a proposed placement and you need to get a policy adjustment to us on this particular subject, I think you can work with Jeremy. We have a policy process. This is a little different because it's a programmatic policy. So I would suggest, with the board's indulgence, if you need to get us to act on something to bring that back. I should know this as the longest serving. I did not know that we had a math placement policy buried in those bazillions of policies. So if there is something you would like us to look at, I think we can act on that and pivot on that relatively agilely this spring. So just figure out what you'd like it to say, and we can talk a little bit more about it, because you spent a good deal of time bringing us up to speed. Okay, any comments from the floor on this presentation? And thank you very much. Okay, with that, thank you very much for the two-person show. Danielle, you were very indulgent of the bad jokes. Nicely done. We will see you at 7 o'clock with the girls' victory tomorrow night, and the clean sweep 4-0 Cardinal Newman on Saturday night at 7 as well. 5.2, come on down. We have our friends who we have seen about every 6 weeks now since before school started.
I don't recognize you guys. I don't see a box with a sandwich on the counter.
God. Our facility master's plan approval. This is CA plus SA and VPCS was our acronyms. This is our facility master plan team, or at least some of them. Thank you very much for being here. Kevin, it's good to see you in the back and bringing people here. Take it away.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for having us. I'm Jennifer Gibb, a program manager for Advanced Health. Been supporting the project with Trent Summers, a principal architect with Casa Studio. Rob Murray is with King Consulting, our demographer. He's unable to be here today, but I can answer, Trent and I can both answer any questions that you may have. So let me try to use the clicker. Okay, wonderful. It's a success. Everything's important on this slide. Everything is a number one. No, we're going to walk you through tonight the process, community demographics, enrollment projections, the financial strategies that we went through out of the committee, and then your current and future facility needs. It's important to know that this has been a process that we've been As board president mentioned, we've been here, enjoying the process, understanding where you've been, where you are, and where you can go as a district. So thank you for having us. Trent, you want to
Yeah.
talk about our community?
Thanks very much. And then one of the things that we hit on when we first came here is this isn't a process that we direct, it's a process that we kind of move forward with you. So all of these constituents are very important when we start to make our facility master plans. As Jen said, you know, we had a lot of district involvement, community involvement. We brought in some skilled demographers to make sure we understood the community, and then went through a whole process of outreach, listening, input, and then consolidation into the report you have. But it's really just important to say this is not something that's our vision, this is the vision of your community, and we got a lot of really good input. So thank you all for those of you who attended with us, and we'll move forward a little bit talking about the process of facilities. So this is one of the diagrams that we brought to you when we first presented. It's sort of this circle of how things are going to move through any sort of facility decisions that you make, right? We're at the start of a process of inquiry, and we're going to try to do everything that we can for you in a data-driven way, right? The data is going to drive the decisions we make, which makes them defendable, but also logically based and sound for your district moving forward. So you'll see there, we're in the far right corner there, we're developing the master plan. Just want to make sure that we understand we're going to revisit that, but it's really the foundation of this circle that you're going to go through with all of your facility decisions moving forward.
The schedule, this is a schedule of the process and the meetings that we had with the community, the Windsor community, and our team. So we walked the stakeholders through purpose and demographics, a deep dive into understanding enrollment projections, your community demographics, your baseline enrollment, and then where you are with residential development and your transitional kindergarten. We then took the committee through a deep dive into facilities assessments and areas of focus, which again, all these we're going to even dive deeper for you tonight in the presentation, but we had a very fun activity with funding and the way that we source our money and how we can apply it. And then we went over the overall plan. So we're going to start with community demographics. We wanted to, this is all in your study, so you have that attached, but we wanted the board and community to have a high level of understanding of where you are as a district. So currently you are decreasing in enrollment, and that's continuing, continuing trend. Absent residential development, you would be just kind of flatline, stable, and we'll see some slides a little bit. You get that residential development and transitional kindergarten are what you're keeping you at your current level. And then really there's opportunities that we saw based on some of the strategies that you have with your facilities improvement to potentially increase enrollment if they are implemented.
I think too, real quick, to just hit on that, the idea of decreasing enrollment is something consistent across the area. This is something that many districts, many of your neighboring districts are experiencing. And so one of the things that Superintendent Decker brought into is how can we proactively look at addressing that in the ways we can. So there's going to be some conversation, as Jen said, about that as to how you may want to change some policies or engage your community to help mitigate some of that.
Absolutely, and this is a population analysis. You're looking at 10 years of the census. So we go back to 2010. You had under 18 is the yellow, and over 18 is the green. And so you're seeing that you are trending with your under 18 population. The students are here in the last 10 years. So that's based on census data. And then this is your total enrollment data, and what we've done is we've broken it down on the bottom part by grade level, or so the green is TK5, the orange is the 6-8, and then the yellow is the 9-12. But again, you're seeing the overall decrease in each cohort as they're migrating through. So we'll see another slide. I think it's up here a little bit, but you're going to see the matriculation. So this is your kindergarten enrollment trends, and the colors are broken down. The lighter blue is your transitional kindergarten, and your darker green blue is the kindergarten. And so you're seeing a decline in your kinder, but you're seeing a pickup in your transitional kindergarten, and that's where we're becoming a little bit more stable. We talked about in the report, and it's much more detailed than this, but we talked about your residential development that's proposed. So you'll see that we surveyed all the opportunities that are in the area. We work closely with the town on that. And you have significant amount of residential development happening over the next several years. So in trending in that for future enrollment projections, we'll see that in a second. But this is where that development's basically placed throughout your district. So important to know, it's not located all in one specific area. You are being impacted district-wide.
If you could, I didn't see it anywhere else in the presentation. Could you just spend a minute to talk, and even a rough estimate, if you don't have it at the tip of your tongue, that percentage or factor for student presence in the different housing types? That there are different ratios in there, and just comment on that for those here and those who may be watching at home, because I don't think that necessarily is that I have seen and would be a helpful thing to know. That any other?
Yeah, there's two documents. There was one page.
I remember.
We definitely can touch on that. So it isn't in this presentation. We don't break out the student generation rates, but every type of unit that is built in residential construction is assigned a different student generation. And what does that mean? So we have single family units, we have multifamily units, multifamily affordable, so you're looking more at apartment complexes, and then the price range of those and affordability. Those all will generate a different student count, right? So the average, I don't have your numbers on this presentation, but they are in the report. The average statewide for single family residents is 0.2. So for every 5 houses, you get 1 kid. And then with affordable multifamily, the average is one kid per unit. So thinking about that, you have a mixture throughout your district. So it's really important that we watch that, we understand, we communicate closely with the town as those developments roll in. Again, you'll see on the right-hand side of this chart, they're not all coming in at once, but we want to be ready for the students when they do. So we work closely with the demographers for that as they future, continue to update that.
Understand, and that's the level of the explanation that I.
Yeah, and this is just one thing, we'll talk about this a lot, like we really tried to gear this to create a living document for you, and that's definitely one thing we'd encourage you to update every year, is reach back out to the demographics team just to keep a pulse on the development, because those are large developments, and if they move, when they move, they will create students that you need to accommodate. So make sure you're kind of always checking back on those updates as your enrollment comes out, just to do a quick pulse on your student population, but also looking back on that development.
Thank you.
And what I also wanted to say, kind of piggyback on Trent's message, is you have cumulative development. You have a lot of littles, but they're going to add up. So it's important to track them. All right. So in regards to enrollment projection, so taking that base data and now applying it to the future, right? So we're going to look at your local births actually decreased between 07 and 21. As you can see, you're trending down. So how do we project, right? We have to have births, right? Either babies are born or people move into our town or houses are built. So over the last 5 years, it's not just for Windsor, it's like Trent said, over the entire state, we have the lowest births that we've had in the century. I think what's important on this slide is really that you get at least 95% of the births in the last 5 years are coming to Windsor, which is great. People aren't being born here and then moving or not coming to Windsor. I mean, there was a great presentation in regards to your programs. You have wonderful programs. You've been doing great things. So the kids are coming when they're here. And then again, your TK is about 20%, and that's going to be changing dramatically as that's continuing to be implemented, and you also have the facilities to have that program. Here's, we do three projections, and we're showing you the moderate projection, but in the full demographics report, you'll see a low, moderate, and high projection. It's important to look at all three because they can mean different things at different times. But when we're planning, we really look at the moderate. You don't want to build classrooms if kids aren't going to be there and they stay empty, and then and you don't want to not build that, either one, so you go in the middle. But what you can see is you have a little bit of a bump in 23-24, and that's primarily due to your transitional kindergarten and I believe a few developments coming on, and then you're going to be trending back to where you are now. So again, this is something that's live, should be revisited. Everything can impact it. I think there's a lot that's going on with housing in general in the state of California, and the housing elements that are being adopted by our towns, cities, and counties. So it's important just to watch that as well.
It's kind of one of the things too, we talk about that bump is your transitional kinder. Another policy could come in that could radically shift that as well. So make sure we kind of always come back and update that to see, as Jen said, it could be some simple legislation change in housing that'll change things dramatically. So just make sure you keep an eye on how your community is growing and how your students are migrating. And that's going to give you a really good idea what those facilities needs are going to be in the future.
And this is the schedule that I wanted to show that shows your population matriculation. So you're seeing that on the left-hand side, you see your current enrollment, and then on the right-hand side, you see your projected enrollment, and you do have a little bit of a bump that you're seeing at the different cohort levels. But again, staying at the moderate and kind of staying where you are as of right now. Are there any questions on enrollment projections or demographics?
Just enrollment.
The only thing that I would say is those are the numbers and they don't lie. But I don't want to use the word politics, but I believe that with the things that are changing in our environment, like right now, we know that Santa Rosa, they are looking at all kinds of shrinkage. And so some of the things that might be in Santa Rosa that might be attractive to some families, I've talked to families that day, why do you go to the other places? And they, well, because I can, it's almost, it's 9 to 1. The answer is always because I can drop my kids off at one spot. It's always that, which goes back to the 20, 30-year question Windsor had of, neighborhood schools versus campuses, whatever, right? Which is a discussion that maybe our community has here coming in, which we talked about in our forums. But the fact that Santa Rosa is going to be consolidating and they're going to be shrinking, they're going to be closing schools down, that dynamic also is going to change. There more and more, I've always believed that Windsor is going to end up becoming a regional type of a school system. We're already seeing it in a, not a small, but in a moderate way because of the courses that we offer, because of the core system that we have at the high school. We're going to have more and more people that want to have their kids have access to those things. So from a high school standpoint, we're already seeing that we get a lot of kids that come in from the other area. And with that even said, I can't tell you how many people still always go, oh, I went to the league tournament the other week, right? And I hear parents go like, it should be great for our kids to go to Windsor, but you guys are just closed and can't get in. I said, that's not true. And they're going, no, really, it is that's a rumor. I said, we're
And for business.
Yeah, we're open, let's come on in and put your paperwork in and what have you. And so middle school, high school, the whole 9 yards. So that said, I think we have to look at that even though that when you look at what's in our bubble, those numbers are correct, but there's a bigger bubble outside that, we are becoming attractive. Look, Brian just meant it. Get used to that new term, league champion, MVP kind of stuff, right? People are attracted to success and they want their kids to belong to something that is successful academically as well. So I think that even though these numbers are what they are, we can't just focus on what we have today or what we think that inside our original bubble is all we're going to have. Unless we're going to, shut our gates and say this is just it, right? Which I don't think financially is very wise because the more kids we have, you might have some kids that are interested in this, that, and the rest, if you have enough of them, you can have full programs that offer that, what do you call it? You have a little thing with all the little colors on it. The palette of things for all the kids to pick from whatever they want to do. And there's enough kids that there's an inertia with every one of those programs that we have to offer. So while this is really informative, and it is what it is, I think we also need to keep in mind, though, that we're really needing to make sure that we can accommodate everything that program-wise that we have to offer and go from there. So, and then the last thing is kind of like with Maddie, I mean, I was looking at the numbers. The high school, the last 10 years, we've kind of had about a 5% decrease. Now that we're winning everything, we probably have an increase again. Hopefully they're big and strong. Anyhow, the middle school is about 7%, but the elementary, it's a 25 or 26% hit. So when you couple the comments that I've heard from parents of, I like to drop our kids off at one place, that's one thing. The other is, and I'm not sure if I read this in a letter or an email or something, or just in conversations or all of those things. At Maddie, the things that we're changing at Maddie with our plans, that is gonna make it so we have nice permanent structures for what we're counting on. And then, yes, the portables are an option if all of a sudden we have a big influx. I know that it's counterintuitive right now that people aren't building certain things. Builders generally acquire land to build multifamily on. They usually acquire it when the economy is heading where it is. Because interest rates are high, it drives the prices down. And so they usually acquire property in those times. And then right after those times is when they build them, because the construction materials and labor, there's so much more people available to build. And they're going, heck yeah, I'll get out there, and the material is cheaper, so that way they can build it. So I also believe, actually I know, because I'm doing some of it, that we should be keeping one eye open for a lot of development of the type of material that Bill was asking earlier, where it's like 0.9, it's much higher of a ratio. We could all of a sudden get slammed with just a ton of kids in that lower age group and we need to be able to accommodate that.
Absolutely. I think those are all great points. And again, to Trent's point, this is a point in time. So everything from the right, 2022, 23, which we're in that now, but from 23 on was our best guess, right? We don't have a crystal ball, and all of the things that you said influence. And really, I think what happened most, that will be the most impact on school districts in the state of California is we've always had the requirement for housing elements at the town and county and city levels, but it hasn't necessarily been enforced. And the enforcement over the last year and what's happening in these next few years, you are going to see, I kind of call it a menu of areas, opportunity areas, right, for developers. And they are assigning density, which will then allow them to put in higher density units, affordability. The legislation that's coming down being passed is really to make it more affordable to live in California, and affordable multifamily units are ways that developers can take properties, like you're saying, buy them now and then build them up. So again, this is a point in time. Really encourage the board to have staff go back and revisit this. You have a lot going on in your community with development, and then also other types of programs, like you said, influencing you. Surrounding districts really can impact you. We've seen that in other areas in Sonoma County, especially if you have charters popping up that either pools or charters closing brings you kids, your sports and athletic programs. I mean, that's something you're known for. I know your surrounding districts don't like when the kids migrate, over to you, and it's great for you. So definitely something, again, taking a pulse check annually on this because it can be so volatile. The swing could leave you in a place. I think you're positioned well right now with keeping the relocatable or portable classrooms, but being thoughtful about that.
Just so that way, I wanted to make sure everybody on the board, just real quick, the legislation that you're talking about, it's what I understand. Isn't it now where the state is coming in and saying, hey, you have these goals, you have to hit yours. If you don't hit yours, we will approve a project and trump you. Town council, county board of supervisors, these people want to do this project. We are voiding you and we are approving it. So that way, projects are going to come and happen.
Absolutely. We have LCFF, local control funding formula, where we're able to do a lot with the money that we're given. But we still have, goals that we have to meet at the state level. It's happening at the city and counties, and for your town for building. And if you don't meet them, they will come in and make you meet them. And so that is real. It's happening, not unique to Windsor or Sonoma County. It's happening all over the state. So it's really just important to watch. And again, revisit. We'll see, we are seeing in districts throughout the state, a lot of developers coming to the table, wanting to be part of the discussion because schools are infrastructure, right? They're infrastructure of our communities and it's important. But when you do have a significant amount of growth and in a short period of time, it's a lot on a school district. So we'll talk about some of your facilities on this next step. I'm going to go through some of the financial strategies really quick. We worked with your staff to understand what your current funding is and then what the potential opportunity is for facilities funds. So you have 5 pots of money that you can utilize for facilities general fund. You can do that through the LCFF process, allocating monies from the general fund. You have opportunity through the local bonds. Your community has supported local bonds in the past, and that's a way that you can continue. Developer fees are what are collected on new residential development, either on new units or any development over 500 square feet. That goes into a separate pot. You get money for state funding. You've been very successful in whatever the local community gives you. You go out and try to get your match 50 cents on it, right? 50 cents on every dollar. And then you have special reserves, which is for capital. I know you do have a general fund special reserves, but Fund 40 is specifically for capital, and that is for sale of properties or rental income or other capital funding. So from the analysis that staff did and potential opportunity, we were looking at master planning for $104 million that we went over with the stakeholders when we did our small group. So again, these are some of the opportunities, right? You have a potential for an opportunity to go out for a bond in 2024, 2026, and that would just augment and give you more funds for capital. You could leverage state funding, which you're already doing, but continue to do that with the projects that you've already done and will do. Partner with those developers. Like I said, there's other districts that developers are coming to the table. I believe you have been in discussions with developers in the past, so continue to do that. And then partner with your local agencies. The town of Windsor has been a great partner in this process, and I know they're going through their planning and updating of their general plan. So again, aligning those so that you're utilizing community resources, and that is something that we discussed as part of the small group process that we went through with the stakeholders. So I'm going to hand it over to Trent, and he's going to talk about some of your needs.
I have a lot of anxiety about the clicker, so hopefully
I'll be in charge. Oh, man.
No, so one of the things we want to talk about is as we started to move forward and do assessments, we wanted to look at both sort of your future facility needs, but also modernization and reconstruction of your existing facilities. Number one, we want to hit on this really, really high level. You've done an incredibly good job of maintaining your facilities. We assess schools from the Oregon border down to southern San Diego, so we see it all across the state. You guys are doing a wonderful job maintaining your facilities. That needs to be noted. We're going to talk about a little bit about modernization needs. It's never going to be done. right? You're never gonna finish this. Everything will age out, everything will need replacements, kind of just sort of the process of owning as many square feet as you do. I think you can apply that to your house. There's always a project around the home to do. There's always, you have 100,000 more square feet to deal with that too. And then in order to meet the needs, the state funding program, proactively plan that, right? You always want to proactively plan how to tie the funding needs to that. And that's where Van Pelt's going to come in real well and help you with an implementation plan to make sure you can meet those goals.
Back to you.
You did. So what we want to do for you again is we want to get back to a quantitative study, right? We want to get a data-driven study that talks about the cost of rehabilitation in comparison to the remaining useful life of your system. So we created a database for you. Again, that's going to be a living document. You have copies of that. It's an assessment of essentially every square foot of every system that you have district-wide. And then we talk about the costs to outline to maintain those facilities. You're going to be able to go through those databases, and either with me or with Van Pelt or anybody, change those unit costs, and those will actually get you day-to-day updated costs. So one of the things too to note that we did not do is assess your existing portables. We don't recommend that you guys put a lot of money into those. We encourage you to consider those as temporary facilities and to replace them as you can, keep them for reserves if you'd like, but always kind of be moving away from that. So that's sort of the foundation of the system that we move forward with. And then one of the things that you're going to see attached to this too is a facility condition index. It's a tool that kind of is going to allow you for an apples to apples comparison of all of your assets, right? It's basically the cost to maintain the system versus the cost to replace the system, right? And you'll see various numbers between 0 to 0.5. 0 to 0.1, excellent condition. You're going to see those when we walk in brand new buildings and probably never again, right? You're going to live between this good and poor. All of you guys, all of your facilities are in that good range, which is again to be commended. It talks about how well your facilities are maintained and just sort of how you proactively address that. So that's just going to be an apples to apples comparison. You'll see that for every campus. So we're going to give you a table. That table is going to have both the construction costs in it, right? And those are the hard costs to build the project. Those are the costs that you're going to give the contractor to complete the actual project. And then you're going to see a number for general conditions, and that's for all of the extraneous stuff that goes along with the construction project. So you'll see your temporary utilities, your office trailers, your dumpsters, all of sort of administrative process. We've estimated that at 10%. And then you're going to see a line for required ADA upgrades. The state of California is going to require you to put at least 20% of a project cost into ADA upgrades until you can prove to them that you've met them all. So we've added that there. And then project soft costs, those are going to be the costs that you're going to have to pay DSA to do your plan check reviews. You're going to have to pay your architects and engineers to create it. You're going to pay your testing labs to come and do that. So it's just sort of the regulatory costs of a project. Because what we want to do is make sure you have an idea of what the total project is going to cost. There you go. So what you're going to start to see is that in the report is going to be a table for each one of your campuses. You'll see a short-term need, an intermediate need, and a long-term need. And then you're going to see your campus FCI score at the bottom. And then just sort of for a comparative analysis, we start to talk about dollars per square foot, right? So you can look at a campus like Brooks Elementary. You have about $2 million of immediate need for work there. But overall, the campus is in good condition with an FCI of 0.28. And when we look at the costs, sort of the work that we recommend, it's about $60 per square foot. That's going to be coming
Is
forward.
that, I'm sorry,
Yeah.
is that the total cost?
That's going to be the total cost of the modernization divided by the total square footage of the permanent construction.
Okay, so that includes all of like the project soft costs and everything?
Yeah. So we can look at Maddie, and you'll see that the FCI is lower on Maddie, which would lead us to believe it's generally in better condition. And then, of course, the short-term, intermediate, and long-term needs are there. You have about 5.2 million worth of need at Maddie right now. And you can look at there, and then kind of do this apples-to-apples comparison. It's about $126 per square foot. It's almost double the cost of the gross. All right. I've lost my clicker privilege. So then we go to Cali, and you'll see that Cali has about 13.1 million in short-term need right now. The campus FCI is 0.2, but when we start to look at that comparative cost per square foot, where Brooks was 60, Maddie was 120, Cali's up to about $188 per square foot of immediate need. We want to point that out because you're going to start to see that comes back into play as some of the conversations we've had in community meetings. But really, it's just a point to emphasize there that when we start to look at the need there, out of your elementary schools, Cali's definitely the one that we see the need the most immediate need. Windsor Middle, again, you'll see it, as we start to move up in the cost, when we start to move to the middle schools and high schools, they're bigger, they have larger costs associated, but they also have more complicated programs and more complicated systems to maintain, and then more complicated buildings to use, right? So your middle school has about $20 million worth of short-term needs, about $280 per square foot, but again, that campus FCI is right around 0.26, it's in good condition. So as these numbers start to increase, understand that overall your schools are in good condition. Those numbers are just going to go up due to the complexity of the buildings and the program you're housing there. In the high school, you see $39 million worth of short-term need. That really deals with when the high school was constructed, and a lot of those systems just kind of aging out at this point, right? It's coming of age. You're going to see that when you start looking at your state funding. The state realizes it's coming of age, so you're going to be able to unlock a larger portion of state funding. But again, you also just have more need there. So we're looking at about $40 million worth of short-term need there, $232 per square foot. But again, that campus SCI is at 0.24, which means it's still in good condition. We just want to make sure that everyone understands all of your campuses are, again, like I said, falling into that good condition.
Can I say one thing? So these are massive numbers, right? But I want to point out, it's just like your roof at home. I said this during our meetings. Your roof at home has a warranty on it, right? It's a 25-year, 30-year warranty, whatever it is. Our buildings have a warranty on them as well. Do you replace your roof as soon as that warranty's up? I don't think any of us do, right? So what we're looking at is these numbers represent, our warranties are up on a lot of our buildings, but we maintain them very well so we can stretch the life. But if we were to really just go strictly by when that warranty's up, we've got $39 million worth of need.
And that's where we start to talk about the quantitative and the qualitative. You have really strong program and construction managers in Van Pelt that are going to go around and help you sort of understand which part of these things we want to tackle in an order that is that's feasible for you to undertake. Okay, so here's sort of the assessment of the district-wide. If we roll all these numbers up, it's the big numbers that we present here. You have, again, about 82 million of short-term need, 8 million of intermediate need, and 24 million of long-term need. Again, it deals a lot with when your district was constructed. They're in very good shape, but just start understanding that these bills are going to start to come due, and we want to start looking at how we proactively address this.
You're right in that you're saying they're all in good condition, but some of these that are aging, they're at the tail end of good. They're almost at the beginning of not so good. So case in point, if you don't stay up on your painting and other things and other, an ounce of prevention, pound of cure, all of a sudden now, instead of just stripping, repainting something, you're now going in and having to tear out rot and whatever that you may not have noticed that was just eking underneath everybody's, and it always happens. So I think it's important for everybody to realize that, yes, it's good, we're in good condition, but some of these places, 0.4, 0.28, that's just almost right there, 0.31, which is now not in good anymore.
And I think this kind of speaks to the idea of when you start this process, it's the right time to start this process. You're still in the phase where you can be proactive about planning this. We walk into districts across the state where they are in a reactive state, and they're just sort of moving through that. You've done this study at the right time. We believe and hope that you have the information that you need to make proactive decisions still, but it is coming to the time where we need to start making those proactive decisions.
The only reason I bring that up is because it's very, we're gonna go out, if you go out for a bond, whatever, people would say, hey, your own report says everything's in good condition. And you're right, it is in good condition, but we need to do what we need to do to keep it there. Otherwise, we're gonna have real problems. So I just.
To your point, Rich, we had big storms, right? We have 52 roof leaks. So yes, we're in good condition, but we also have needs, right? 52 roof leaks, you imagine a roof leak at your own home. One little roof leak is a mess. So yes, to your point, I think.
And I don't have to imagine that in my office, they had 13 leaks. So.
So I have a question. I was wondering, where in the budget is cost for, helping teachers and students to be, safe and comfortable during construction? So is there a budget for that?
So when we plan projects, right, you'll hear the term interim housing passed around. That's where we're going to start talking about as we do any project that's gonna have an impact on the campus, how do we house those kids in a way that disrupts their learning as little as possible? I mean, inevitably, construction makes a big mess and it's disruptive, but how do we do that in a way that's the least amount of impact? So you should, with every project that comes through, have some sort of interim housing or some sort of mitigation strategy involved in that. As you start to build out project budgets, you'll see construction costs that should be for almost every item that's going to go to the building. There will be a line item for interim housing attached to any project that would need that.
Yeah, just to elaborate a little bit more, in regards to the construction costs, you'll see this project soft cost of 30%. That includes things for contingencies, which are unforeseen or unknown things that we have to have that were in the original construction costs. It can also include monies for additional things that we want programmatically to support teachers or students or the staff as we're developing that project. And we realize we need a different projector, or we need a different window front, right? That would add to the cost, but we plan for it in that project soft cost percentage. It also includes things for furniture, technology. Project soft cost includes that. So when we're developing budgets, you always want to have the 30% allocated for project soft costs to give you that buffer. And if you don't use it, great. It then goes into project savings and rolls on to the next project, right? But if you don't have it when you're thoughtfully planning, you can get to a point where you don't have the money for interim housing, or you don't have the money to upgrade and add the roof on, right? There's different things that happen in construction, and we just want to be prepared for them.
Right, because these sound like a lot of major construction projects. I was concerned about the level of dust and the impact on the children, especially with the weather. I wonder if that project soft cost does that account for that.
In regards to construction dust mitigation
And safety.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, if some parts of it can either be construction or the soft cost, security fencing, dust mitigation, sound, all of that. As we're planning the projects, we being, district staff would be coming to you with a project budget that would include the comprehensive, cost of that.
Okay, thank you.
Of course.
Please continue.
Future. We want to talk about some of the future goals, and this is some of the opportunities that during our outreach with the stakeholders, we had opportunities to kind of just tell us what you know about your district and what do you think that we need. So it was pretty insightful, and we want to share.
I'd also say too, before we pop back, that second bullet item, revisit this annually, right? I mean, you'll start to see things, TK 2-3 years ago was something that said, hey, this is great, now it's a mandate, right? So always kind of revisit these. We try to set a really broad net on this. So you'll see the assessments go 10 years. The goals that we're gonna talk about, the programs that we're gonna talk about, this should be reviewed in a workshop annually to make sure that your facility goals are always aligned with both the curriculum that you want, how you want to house the students, the political changes, all of that. So what we present now came from the meetings that we had, but it's an activity that you want to make sure you revisit annually to make sure that we're tracking with where you want to go.
Thanks, Jen. So we had a session where we played Windsor-Opoly, and it was engaging and allowed the group to take the $104 million that is potentially an opportunity for you and assign it to other things that maybe aren't the warm, safe, and dry, which Trent just reviewed with you. So this was a process that we went through. There's many different improvements, such as frontage, curb appeal, modernization projects, sheet structures, doing some of our maintenance and operation, transportation facilities, big picture learning, transitional kindergarten, early childhood education. Those were all, and then they're all assigned a budget that would be the base to do that scope of work. You can always add on, but we wanted the committee to know, like, you can't just assign $5 million to the MNOT facility and you want a whole new facility, right? It would cost more than that. So they're all assigned different. What they came up with was their allocations. So they were broken into boards, 5 board members for each committee. And they had to assign their money as if they were the board and representing their community. And it was a really wonderful process. And as you can see, there's lots of different ways to assign that money. They all voted to go out for a bond. They all voted that they would like to support state funding as an opportunity. They wanted to partner with the town, and they wanted to work with their developers. So they all had the same amount of money that they allocated, but as you can see, they allocated them all in different ways.
I think this is interesting because I have a unique anxiety now because I've never presented with a room full of math teachers who I'm hoping that all of my math is right. So please don't hold us to that too much. But one of the things that we did with this is put the community groups through the same process that you're going to go through. We made them make the same decisions that you are going to have to make. And then we held them accountable to realistic budgets as you would too. And from that, as Jen said, you have a lot of different opinions that fell out of this. You'll start to see some people were very equitable and spread it out. Some people consolidate, or some groups consolidated to different projects. But for us, it was a way to make sure that we held accountability to the groups and made them make the same decisions that you will have to make as you do this. And so we feel that this feedback is actually something that will be sort of be restricted the same way that the decisions you're going to have to make is, but also speaks into kind of a quick pulse check of the projects, which I think we came away with some sort of guiding principles we'll share with you either on the next slide or later in the presentation. Oh, there you go.
Yeah, on the next slide.
The next slide.
These are things that we discovered through that that process. So again, the committee had known about the demographics, they understand the facility conditions, they knew where the money was going to come, and they put together a really comprehensive early childhood education was number one for all of the groups. Really important is they look forward to transitional kindergarten and preschool and just creating those communities for our littler learners. Big picture learning was an opportunity and expanding that and embracing it throughout the district. That was one of the opportunities. And then Cali Language Academy, really focusing on equitable goals for our campus and upgrades. As Trent said, it's one of our sites that needs some of the most love in regards to our maintenance, warm, safe, and dry. And so really focusing on that campus for modernization, reconstruction, and then the idea of community schools. And I think that's been discussed, but really they're valuable assets. They're there for not just our students, but for our residents of the town of Windsor, and to really, really support partnerships with our agencies, developers, and then any other stakeholders that may use our facilities as we think and develop moving forward.
So one of the things that we want to do is kind of put those, everything we learned, and then also the themes into place as to how you can start to develop some of these things, right? And so these are sketches, they're diagrams, they're developments of what we see at your campus. Please don't interpret them as anything more than sketches, diagrams, and ideas, right? We're hoping that these are places for you to start conversations. So what you'll start to see is, as Jen said, TK Early Childhood Education, that was a big takeaway there. So when we started to look at Brooks, it sort of housed two things, right? You have this very dynamic big picture learning opportunity. And so what we want to do is take one of your campuses and try to envision what a comprehensive big picture learning, TK through 12 would look like. And so you can see in the bottom right there, we started to develop the TK Kinder. And then as those kids would move through their cohort, they'd actually matriculate through the campus, through an elementary and a middle school setting, up to a big picture learning high school, where they could start to fully embrace that curriculum from early childhood on. We think Brooks would be an excellent opportunity to do that if you want to explore that. And really, we believe from the feedback that we received in your community, it'd be a really amazing way to develop something that's really great in your community and unique to your community. And then we start to look at.
Well, and I think that also goes to, again, in regards to going back to enrollment projections, this could change, right? This idea could absolutely influence and increase enrollment, as it would be an opportunity to draw more students to your community.
I think as much as you guys do with big picture learning, that can definitely be a magnet element for your district. Looking at Cali, one of the things we talked about is, and I apologize for how we had to split the diagram, but you'll notice we did a little shift there to fit it onto one page. Looking at kind of reworking that TK area next to your new 2-story classroom building, again, it's a state mandate, so it's coming, and then how can you really develop those areas to best welcome those students there? And then as we work back to the end and the backside of the campus, as we start to look at early childhood education, because it was such a predominant driver from the conversations we had, you do have an opportunity back there to develop sort of what we would envision as a preschool area or a preschool opportunity there for the students at Cali.
I'm sure, I should probably speak to this, there's been a lot of chatter. So the reason that back area was chosen is because if you know, behind those orange buildings, there's a fence, right? But there's also a street that dead ends into that property. So the concept was, we know Cali site's impacted. So we don't want to impact the site more. But back there, you could potentially have a separate drop off if we were to expand to 3-year-olds, which was what we discussed. That would not impact the site any more than it's already impacted. And that's, you know, it's a big green cloud because that's all it is right now. It's a concept.
Absolutely. I think as you continue to move forward, as we've been saying, there's a lot more that goes into truly developing that into early childhood preschool area for your community. You know, such things as site surveying, traffic studies, really looking at the opportunities for that site and expanding and utilizing the spaces that you have available to you. As you are, you know, some of your sites are restricted on potential growth or expansion.
Thank you both for that. And then if we look at Maddie, right, kind of sort of how do we develop some of the same ideas? You have a really amazing opportunity at Maddie where you have this idea of a separate drop-off in the upper north area. And we talked a little bit about how you can start to develop a preschool that would transition its way around and through to the transitional kindergarten area and then into the kinder and then across the campus. It's a really unique geographic, you know, element that we thought you might be able to work your way into something that would be, you know, it's a safe place for parents and students to engage in the campus originally, but then to work their way through what we would envision something maybe a nature path or something to connect those areas. We think it'd be really, really valuable. It would embrace the goals of the early childhood education. Again, while we're trying to remain conscious of the existing site impacts, and I think, you know, Superintendent Decker's point on the last campus, we are trying to add grade levels without overly impacting campuses. And then we think that at Maddie, you have a really good opportunity to do that by reaching out to that area. You would look at some redevelopment of the baseball field, but we did not lose that community element. We just rotated it there to make sure that we minimize the impact on the community too. Because as we said, your local schools are seen in the area as valuable, very valuable assets to your community. We also want to talk a little bit about some of the property that you have, Jaguar Lane. We want to make you very aware of that. I mean, there's been discussions about that. There's an opportunity to develop that property with your local agencies. And, you know, the town has plans for there, you have plans for there. I think everyone's aware of that. We wanted to make sure that we very much documented that in the study, so you see some of that there. And then I believe the last slide is your district office, or your maintenance facilities too. There's a need to do some work there, so we encourage you to make sure that as you think about both your campuses and how your students interact with them, also the infrastructure that's required to support that. So make sure that as you make future facility decisions, that facility is in your mind as well as it'll require some assets, and there's some work that would be helpfully done there.
And that is the end of our presentation, but I believe we're here to answer any questions.
Sure. This is on for an approval of the plan, which was far bigger than the selected slides you gave in. What I would suggest, we had a number of questions from board members. If board members have any particular questions for Trent and Jen, let's ask them now. We'll go out to the public in case there's any comment, and then we'll bring it back for deliberation. This is an action item, so we will need to take a vote on whether we approve or have modifications or other things. So any questions on there, again, understanding we're going to give a bite at the apple after we put this out for public comment. No? No?
I don't have a question, but going back to the project cost, you know, when the time comes, I would like to see more specific detailed budget on those project soft costs, and also how safety will be addressed. Because I know you will address it, but I want to see specifically, you know, all of the different safety measures you'll take.
Absolutely.
So Bill, so we're just in you, if you have any questions right now, then we're going to come back.
Yes.
details.
Okay, public comment. For all those lucky ones who've been, right, okay, come on up, yes, and if you introduce
Just so you guys know, because I know which item you're here for, we also have a specific item for TK and Cal.
Do we
Yeah.
wait?
It'd probably be best
Yes.
if you want to talk about that.
I'd like to hear that before I go.
No,
It's the next one. It's the next one.
It's
This is the next item on 5.3. Okay, yes, thank you, Superintendent Decker. We do have, it will involve that health construction, but. Okay, seeing none, we will bring it back to the board then. So, board, again, this is on for approval of the facilities master plan as, again, the plan is far more substantial than the excerpts that we got here. They highlighted that. For example, the question I asked about that density ratio and the student percentage coefficient is actually in the report, but I wanted to make sure we talked about it for folks who are playing from home. Any other questions or deliberations?
I just basically, got most of my questions as we went through and thank you. And just one comment, because I'm not sure if it's gonna come up in our next section or not, so I just want to write it. One of the, two observations. One, I just want to tell you guys, I thought you did an excellent job through this whole process. Very, very often we'll have consultants come in who always have a disposed idea of where they want to end up. And they do their best to get all the chickens together to set them down the way they want to go. And you guys didn't do that at all. You guys did a really, really good job of actually just open ears, taking notes, and taking the information in and then just putting it together in a very organized way for us squirrels who are not organized to really see it and take it all in and unpack it. And so I want to commend you guys on doing that. I've been involved with the town for 30 years and I've watched how consultants, it doesn't matter what you say, they're going to end up where they want to go. And you guys ended up where our community and all the people that were stakeholders, this reflects all those comments. And so your professionalism, I just want to commend you on that. The one thing that I do want to bring up, because I don't know if it's going to come up in the next section or not, is I really liked how whoever put this together, like with Brooks, everything kind of flowed. It transitioned kind of like from one thing to the next, and all those sites were that way. And except for Cali, I noticed that if we have that, what we call the green cloud over here at the preschool and that, where's that? That would be the west side.
Yeah, we talked about it originally.
Okay, and the only thing I'm thinking of, and I don't know, and this is, I'm just gonna throw it out there, and then I can get kicked later, but everything else flowed, and so I don't know if the TK area, if that maybe should be over in the preschool area, so that way it was preschool, TK, and it flowed that way. I'm not an architect, I can't barely draw stick people, so,
There's no way to, we talked about it quite a bit, because we all love the idea of having it flow.
Gotcha.
But, you got science rooms, up in that upper campus, and so that's really gotta be your middle school.
Got it.
And then if you put TK up there, there's still no way to flow into K1, 2.
No, I mean, it's just, if it
Well,
was,
and part of that process though was we really wanted to be considerate of what the district and community had already invested. To Superintendent Decker's point, you just built those amazing science classrooms, right? We don't want to tear it down. If it was a blank slate, we could have, but being thoughtful about the investment that the community already had. And saying that, knowing that there are preschool programs, I mean, this is something 3-year-olds and 4-year-olds, they are different. Like, that's a big shift sometimes. And so moving at those littles, that's kind of part of the conversation we talked, and I think that, you know, we've been working on some of the projects that you'll hear next, but those littles in the preschool, having them have their own little village as they come into your school community ended up being a good choice if you choose to move forward that way, but it allows that opportunity.
I think one of the things that we talked about too at Cali is that you've made significant investment in the new kinder building and that, and so you'll have that sort of adjacency with the TK program. So those kids will have that what I kind of like about the TK there is they're going to be able to sit in that safe space, that welcome space, that transitional kinder space, and actively watch the kinder across the way and then immerse themselves in it as they transition. So it's a landlocked site. It's a difficult site, you know, but I think overall we're still going to have that consistency of that pathway through.
Great, thank you.
Again, I would urge us, because this has been up and is available on our website, these are simply concept snapshots, right? For example, we don't have a concept snapshot of the north of Arata property. We don't have a concept snapshot of Windsor Middle School, a very controversial conversation a few years ago as well. With the growth of Cali and needing more elbow room, do we swap the middle school at Cali? Not that I'm saying that's good, bad, or indifferent, but there are certain footprints of facilities that I think everything is on the table. What we have not done in the 10 plus years I've been doing this is taking a long-term view of what do our demographics look like for 10 or 15 years? How does it mesh with the town's general plan? How might we allocate resources that we have? And that's what this does. And I love your repeated reminders. This is a dynamic document. Here it is. Put it on every year for an update. It's going to be vested over there with Austin. And I just want to thank you. I concur with Rich. I think the outreach was good. I like very much how, you know, we had town council members, planning commission members, Parks and Rec members, other staff who look at projects from our partners in the town who are at this dais when we're not here. Leaning forward to look to say, what are our facilities going to look like for the next 20 to 40 years, which is really what I see this as. So thank you very much. Any other comments before we entertain a motion to, again, the action item requested is to approve the facilities master plan as presented by the two sets of consultants. We need a motion.
I would like to make a motion that we accept this facility master.
Okay, you meant approve, but I'll take that. We're going to approve it.
I'll second.
Okay, thank you. So first motion by trustee Carnation, a second by trustee Ahmad. All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, wonderful. That's unanimous 5-0. Thank you very much. We will see you again. Appreciate very much your work.
May as well stay out there.
Thank you very much.
We'll sit for 1 second.
Okay, for our friends who have waited patiently for 2.5 hours, we will now move to consideration of approval of the study proposal to design the new transitional kinder area at Kalakamakik Language Academy. Then this comes from another of our friends and our local leader from Van Pelt Construction. Sir, thank you.
Good afternoon, Board of Trustees. I'm Brian Cameron, Senior Project Manager with Van Pelt Construction Services, for those who don't know me, and I'll be presenting on the Kalakamakik Language Academy TK area upgrades project. So to piggyback on the facilities master plan we just went over, one of the main things we talked about was updating the extended child, or the ECD program, and updating the facilities there. So what we'll be going over is kind of our project overview, the impact it will have on the site, project scheduling estimate, and the funding portion, which Terry and Austin will go over. So when we looked at the TK program at Cali, we needed 6 new TK classrooms for the program. This would entail removing the 2 ECC portables that are there and demolishing the current 4 TK buildings and kinder buildings. And we would propose installing 6 modular classrooms, 1,350 square foot modular buildings with restrooms for the children and the staff. We would also redevelop the site work in the area by doing a new TK play structure, shade structure, and landscaping for the area. So when we looked at this, we wanted to see how it was going to impact the site. We are already doing the 2-story construction there currently, which is planned to be completed by early August. So we already have our temporary facilities, which we discussed and, on the master plan. So in order to save costs, we'd be roughly saving about $1.2 million by reusing half of the portables. And we would remove the other 6 that are on site already. And the plan would be.
I'm gonna jump in, Brian, because we actually met with Callie, and we had a different plan going in. We were gonna try to gain more field space, that was our concept, but going to talk with everybody, they said, don't do that, because it actually required a second move for some of our teachers. So we modified it, and it's actually more cost effective, which we didn't think about until we kind of had that discussion. So if you're wondering why we chose those portables, it was because of that conversation we had.
Correct. And then we would, once the new two-story building is completed, we would shuffle around the side of it. We would have the TK classrooms filling rooms 33 to 37. And we would update them a little bit by adding some seats because they need water in the rooms. This would also put them adjacent to the new play structure and shade structure from the new project. And then, as I discussed, we would remove the unused portables, move back a little bit more space on that field. And we would plan to use similar contract layout area that we have out there currently. But we would also be putting back the parking stalls that are currently enclosed with the fencing.
One aspect of this that we hadn't thought of either until we had met is TKers need, like, they usually have bathrooms in the classroom, right? What we're proposing is they don't have bathrooms in these classrooms. So we currently have an extra instructional aide because of what happened earlier in the year with one of our teachers resigning. And we kept that person. So with this plan, we would propose that we continue to keep that person, mainly so that they can accompany kids to the bathroom because they have to leave the classroom. And you just can't have those 4-year-olds going on their own. So that was another recommendation by the crew over there that I think was a good one.
And then obviously as we move forward with this, we'll get their input and incorporating into the project plan.
So we're gonna jump into Austin, is gonna talk kind of how this kind of came out goofy on the way it was lined up on the numbers. It came out goofy, that's all right. But Austin's gonna talk about the cost, 7.2 million, and kind of where we pulled from, because we didn't just have one big fund that we could pull from for this project.
Yeah, not sure why it came out goofy, but so anticipated total cost is 7.2 million. And so some of our available funds, I'll touch upon all of them because I think they all need to be touched upon. So bond fund, we have 3.5 million that has not already been set aside for another project, right? So we're gonna scrape together the rest of that. The early TK implementation funds that we've committed as a district of 1.4 million, we're gonna scrape those together. The Lytton Band of Pueblo Indians, we received $1 million donation some odd years ago. And so we're going to use 600,000 of that we've set aside for this as well. And deferred maintenance, we have 400,000 that we're going to set aside for this. And then developer fees, we have 1.3 million that we're going to set aside. And then I want to touch upon general funds. So 0 of these dollars will be coming out of general fund. It's going to be scraping together basically all the facility funds that we have left that are mainly for facilities for this project. And to touch upon the why now, Jeremy's gonna go into that, but we're scraping together these funds now because there's funds available at the state. So go ahead, Jeremy.
So right now, we can only serve 80 TK students. There's 2 buildings there that we were thinking about using. We don't own them, ECC does. And they are actually going to be removed from our campus. They should have been removed in December. But right now we have 4 classrooms, so we can serve 80 students. TK is, initially when all the mandates came down for TK, it was a 1-to-10 ratio adult to student. And so that's how we planned everything. So we planned to have 20 students in the classroom with 2 adults in there. That mandate's kind of changed, it's soft language now, so we don't know if they're gonna implement that. It's at 1-to-24 right now, but we're continuing with our 1-to-20 ratio. So having said that, we got 4 classrooms right now. Every other grade level has 120. Go to kinder, first, second, so on and so forth. Years ago, they had 150, but there was a plan to draw down the students on that campus because of the impact that we've all talked about already. So ideally, we would have 120 TK students so they can flow right into kinder, into first, and go up. So why now though? Well, that's one part. We can't actually get 120 students, but there's funds available. right now. And there's no guarantee that they'll be there should we wait, 4 years to be able to do this with bond funds or some other pot of money that, might magically appear. So if we can get this done, there's an item, the last item here is for us to go to the state and try to get reimbursed. So what's important, I think, and this is our expert here, I'm fumbling my way through, but essentially, we've got funds available at the state level. They may not be there in the future. I know that I've been on a list before. It took 13 years to get funded. And the claim was, don't worry, you get on the list. It goes in order. When you get on, you'll be funded. 13 years later was when we actually got the funding. So right now, they're there specifically for this. So Jen, I'm going to kick this to you because really, if there's anything I missed, please fix my fumbling through that.
No, absolutely. So you'll hear about Prop 51 funds, which is our current bonding authority for state funding. It's been exhausted, right? You're hearing that out there. But with the general fund money that we had surplus of in last year's budget, there was allocation of monies, as Superintendent Decker stated, for transitional kindergarten with the passage of AB 130. So what that means for us is that there's 2 more rounds. The round that's open right now, it was open February 1st through March 2nd. You have the opportunity to apply for these funds, one-time general fund monies for transitional kindergarten, preschool, and full day kinder, so early childhood education at the state. And your proposed project fits in line with the Title V regulations, and you would be doing all the right steps to get in line for that money. That money is, again, it's not coming from your new construction funding pot or your modernization funding pot, which Superintendent Decker alluded to, is monies that are not available and we have to wait for another state bonding path. Hopefully you get one in 2024, but even if we did, potentially you wouldn't see that money for another 3 to 4 years past that. So what you do strategically as a district, if you decide to move forward with this project, is put in for this money from the general fund allocation for facilities right now, get in line for that, and then also simultaneously put in money for your application for new construction and modernization, have them going simultaneously, and when your TK gets picked up, great. And then if you have the opportunity to get new construction or modernization for additional work above and beyond that TK application, you're going to be in line for it, right? You're doing everything you need. Another opportunity really quick is with the transitional kindergarten or early childhood education funding. You do not have to have DSA approval yet. So usually when you put in an application, you have to have California Department of Education and Division of State Architecture approval prior to submission. This is a competitive grant program, and you do not have to have those things. You can submit right now.
Jen?
Yes, of course.
I'm interested in the AB 130 number we're thinking about for this project. Is that the 1.4 million PK implementation funds, or what portion do we anticipate of the 7.2 million that might be available should we take advantage of these construction funds that are in this window in the next couple of weeks?
Absolutely, yes. So for transitional kindergarten, it's actually for new construction, it's a 75-25% match. So for full day kinder, for new construction, it's a 50-50 match, but for preschool and transitional kindergarten, it's 75-25, but that's of the state's project allocation. So it's never 75% of 7 million, but it is 75% of your pupil grant allocation. So you would work closely with your funding consultant that specifically is putting in this application, but it's a significant portion of the project cost.
More than half?
It's about, it ranges about $600,000. I don't want to quote, but it ranges about $600,000 a classroom. Yeah.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
Any other questions from the board before we go to the public? And thank you, public, proficiently.
I got one more slide.
Oh, yes, sir. I'm sorry.
Sorry.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And then how
I'll
long
make
does it
it
take?
quick. So as far as the project schedule, if we move forward, we would start pre-construction planning. We'd be working with the school and the teachers and making sure the facilities are up to their needs. Then we would go out to bid, get a modular company on board, begin the design phase with them. and hopefully get the DSA, site work submittal, sent in by the end of July. And then submit the modular design by the end of August. Beginning construction around November, mid-November. And, then having the installation of the modular buildings around June and project completion around, August of 2024.
So Brian, when modular buildings, just for the board's consideration, are we talking the sort of construction that we saw in the 18 buildings at Manning Washburn?
Right, yeah, the 17 classrooms over
17,
there.
yeah.
There, I know a lot of people confuse modulars with portables.
Yes.
But these are modular buildings, they'll have concrete foundations and concrete floors, so they feel like a real building.
Thank you for clarifying that. Any other questions from the board? And Rich, we'll start with you.
Just a quick follow-up on, so I just want to make sure I understand the timeline. So if we approve this tonight, that allows us to make the grant application. So the application, because we only got a little window to do it. So if we do that, even though the construction will be completed next year, we're still able to do, apply for the matching or grant funds, right?
You got it.
And that closed, they just opened here a week ago. They closed it here pretty quick.
Yes.
Okay. So
Yes.
yes, we're good.
Yep.
Thanks.
Oh, I'm sorry. So 11/23, is that Thanksgiving by any chance?
Yeah, it's around there. These are all rough timelines. We still have a lot of fine tuning to do on this.
Okay, yeah, because I'm just worried about the level of noise of, on the campus, affecting the students in general.
Correct. Yeah, I mean, we've been working a lot currently on the site with the construction going on there. We do our best to work with the site and mitigate any issues with the parking or noise levels around like testing days.
Mhm.
So we do have weekly meetings with them, and we would continue to do so with this project.
With your point, Malinaw, it's not ideal to have construction on
It's
site.
not, yeah.
Yeah, most contractors don't work Thanksgiving, so.
And I think that's November of 23. That's not necessarily November 23rd.
Oh, I see.
Yeah.
Got
These
it.
are all-
Yeah,
like
thank
I
you for
said,
clarifying.
Yeah, it's okay. We got 6 or 7 months of construction, so
Yeah.
a portion of it is going to happen during the school year.
Uh-huh.
And that's why we want to utilize the current interim housing on the site.
Yes, okay. Okay, so we'll bring it back to the board for our deliberation. I did a quick math, Jen, and 600K a classroom times 6 is 3.6, which is half-ish of $7.2 million. So that is, that reduces our cobbled together $7.2 million by 50% should this work out.
Just for clarification, so you cobbled together a bunch of different numbers.
Yeah.
If we approve this tonight, do you take all those numbers out of that and say, hey, this is the Cali here, so that way we don't sometimes think, oh, we have money there, and it's already gone, or
That's
can we do
exactly
that?
what I do, so I earmark it, so it goes to that, and then to your point for the funding, we may not get approved for this round, if you remember on the last round, we got a 0.
Right.
So this round, we're hoping that's not gonna happen and we're gonna get approved. If not, there's a third round that comes up, but
Does
either
it
way.
float?
What's
Does-
that?
Does our application that we put in now, if it doesn't get approved, does it stay in line and float to the third?
I
Or if we
rebring it back.
Okay.
Yeah, but my point though, Rich, is that I have to realign these funds because we're gonna have to pay for the project and then I'll end up getting reimbursed later for 3.6.
It's a spending hit.
Yeah.
Okay, why don't you all stay right in that first row? Because many of the comments, many responses from you. So folks, thank you for your patience. For those of you who are here about this particular project proposal, we would love to hear from you if you have public comment. And thank you for your patience. Again, as a reminder, I will have my clock, not to be rude, but to sort of let you know that you're coming up on 3 minutes. So if you could wrap up and please introduce yourselves and if you work there or what your relationship to Cali is, so we know, and we'd love to hear from you. Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. So I am Jenna Mendez and I am a TK teacher. And okay. And this is Aida. She's also a TK teacher and my colleagues, Vienna and Anna.
Wonderful.
Thank you. So dear WUSD Board of Directors and Administration, we appreciate the vision presented by Superintendent Decker for the dedication to growing our successful bilingual TK program. Garika teachers, TK teachers would like to thank you for this opportunity to address numerous concerns pertaining to the transition of our new and upcoming transitional kindergarten program. As Superintendent Decker stated, this school year we started with 5 TK classes. Unfortunately, one of those classes consisted of 2 rundown portables owned by ECC with sagging floors and visible mold on the walls, but most importantly, no bathroom. This space was not developmentally appropriate for children experiencing school for the first time. This teacher's instructional aide was solely escorting groups of students to the bathroom all day long, leaving the student-to-teacher ratio out of compliance. We would like to share with you what a day in TK is like. Within the first half hour, we are managing students who have had accidents, food spills, runny and bloody noses, to list a few. We are able to manage these daily occurrences with efficiency because we have an in-class bathroom, running water, and the support of our instructional aide. This being said, we are concerned that next year, our instructional aide will spend most of her day escorting students to the bathroom that is being shared with 9 other TK and kindergarten classes for a total of over 200 students. As a result, we are left with the remaining students hoping for the best until she returns.
I'd like to just express my concern about not having a bathroom. Again, Diana, new TK teacher of Rock Valley. A child, the youngest one in my class, did not make it to the bathroom inside of our classroom. Went in their pants and proceeded to play with their feces and smear it across the mirror, toilet, walls, and sink. And this is with a bathroom in class. While she ran out of the bathroom without clothes, another student waiting for the bathroom had an accident. This happened again with a bathroom inside our class. Just 10 minutes before dismissal, and I cannot imagine what I would have done if I didn't have an aide or a second support aide with me. We take pride in our dedication and commitment to nurture and create a solid dual language TK program over at Cali. We look forward to collaborating together with Superintendent Decker and whoever it may be to have the classroom essentials needed to continue to provide quality TK programs over at Cali.
She's a lot taller than I am. That being said, the following must be added to our program to meet the basic needs in a TK classroom for the 23-24 school year. So as Superintendent Decker already stated, an additional instructional assistant, but we're asking for one for each TK classroom. And to help escort groups of students to the bathroom all day long because they have little bladders and they need to go frequently. And then also we wanted to note that it's really a challenge when our instructional aides leave during lunch. We're left with the kiddos for 30 minutes. So one teacher for 25 TKers. So we're asking for an additional IA to cover our instructional aide that leaves during that time. And then, as we said, running water. And then in addition, we look forward to having more clarity on the following questions. When are incoming parents, if this does get approved, when are incoming parents being notified of not having a bathroom in class? Where will TK eat snack and lunch? How many stalls in the kinder bathroom? And are the sinks and toilets appropriate height for TK students? Where would drop off and pickup be for TK, as we've already seen? And will TK share recess and lunch with kindergarten? We look forward to working with you to make this transition for children and educators successful. Cali takes pride in working collaboratively with parents, teachers, and administrators. We are available to discuss any future TK plans that directly impact the quality of our TK program. And we would like to thank you again for giving us space for our concerns to be heard and voiced. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Could I have a list?
Wonderful. Thank you very much. Okay. Well, I was public comment on the matter. So, did you want to share anything, ma'am?
I just wanted to say that the program is going really, really well. The kids are just blossoming. Their Spanish is beautiful, and they are learning. They're sponges. The kids are so amazing, and I'm really, really proud of just the whole program and the opportunity we all got to start it together. Even though Sonia did have it 2 years, but I think we have a really good team, and the parents are really happy. The kids are singing, dancing, counting in Spanish. They're starting to write the first letter of the words, and it's beyond what I thought. And they're fast. They're really fast. They're hard to catch. So we're always moving. We're always trying. Okay, what's going on? And so we appreciate all the support.
We've actually started our own version of a visual performing arts program.
Let us know when the show is.
We did. We had a show of Pete the Cat in December, and imagine 100 4 and 5-year-olds painting 6 murals that were 6 feet in diameter and in height. That was our backdrop. We even worked with Heather Cullen, who created lyrics for us, and the 4th graders accompanied us with our reporters on stage, and we created our own props. It was really a magical event.
Will you have another one before school
Yes,
is
we're
out?
working on the Hungry Caterpillar, hopefully.
Let us know and we will be
In
there.
collaboration with Maddie,
Okay.
TK, we're hoping. And we're actually invited to the performance at the high school, so TK will be visiting.
Wonderful. You're part of the
performance.
450 kids.
Yes.
Great. Well, thank you very much, ladies. So,
Thank you.
a lot to think about. We're gonna, thank you. Any other public comment on this issue?
So can I say one thing that?
First, we're gonna wait and see if there's any other public comment on this issue. Okay. Aha, see, I thought there was somebody stirring out there. Yes, ma'am.
I'm here representing, as a Cali teacher, representing many of our other colleagues who could not be here tonight, but are in support of our TK teachers who want the best for our students and our program.
Wonderful, thank you for sharing. Almost ready. Okay, with that, I am going to close public comment. Thank you, and thank you for your patience at the 2-hour and 45-minute mark. Yeah, I think there's some things to talk about. It strikes me before you make your comment. I didn't hear this is a bad idea. It seems to me there is a transitional period, and then come August 24, we're there, which is helpful for me. I am persuaded that perhaps the perfect may here be the enemy of the good. We must take a step tonight about this if we're going to try and get our hands on some of this money. I think there is a lot of details to work out which don't need to be worked out between now and April 1st. Clearly need to, looking at when our parents going to know, and things need to be worked out before maybe May 1st. I'll just give that as, if I understand where we are, and I appreciate the way you all wrote your comments up. So with that, Superintendent Decker, please let us know what you'd like us to know to help shape our deliberations on what we need to be deciding tonight.
This is very quick. Another concern was, are we going to continue to expand TK and try to get to those 6 classrooms while we're doing this? And we're not. We're going to hold firm in our 4 classrooms, stick with what we've got until we have the facilities to actually expand. So that was a concern. You didn't bring it up tonight, but I know you brought it up before.
With that, if there are any questions on the proposal, and again, thank you for these clarifying comments, and we really appreciate the bullet points on your notes. Be interested to hear what my colleagues think. Again, I see our action step being, are we approving the concept to go forward so that our chief business officer and superintendent can move forward on the grant application, and maybe out of that, identifying, look, what's the report back on some of these other steps? What do we need? If there is an interim infusion, for example, I always like talking as I did with the map presentation, if there are additional resources for bridge staffing, I'll just use that word, those sort of things. And when,
We have the proposal for CASA as an action item as well.
Yes, that's coming. Yeah, thank you, Brian. I appreciate that. So that is 5.4. But I'd be interested to hear from my colleagues about questions we may have. And I think part of it, Jeremy and Austin, is help us understand what it is we need to decide. There are unanswered questions, clearly. There's concerns that have been expressed. And it seems to me tonight is not the night we have to decide that, but we could decide to go forward with, look, in the next 2 sequences of meetings, we will address those things. So help us understand that.
It might be though, depending on the answer to this. So if I understand the concerns that were brought up and they listed some different issues, are the things that they were asking for, are those program things that they're trying to add, or are they through the construction process that they're looking for?
As I think, I mean, I don't want to speak for everybody, but I think, here's what I would ask for the board. I think tonight, what we're asking is, do you approve the project, right, in theory? And how we get there is another conversation, because we need to have an architect start to design and get everything submitted. So now to answer your question, so Bill, that was answering your question, right? And then there's general consensus. I think that we've heard that from the Cali staff. We support this project and we have a way to pay for it. The second part with the 2 instructional aides, I think that that's a further conversation that we need to have, right? I don't know if that, I think that's through construction is what I was hearing, but I'm unsure. So I think that's a larger conversation that I'd like to have before coming back and having it here probably.
No, and that's all good. The only reason why I'm asking is, I'm wondering if we could have that discussion. And I'm greedy. I want to get every penny from the state that we can possibly get. So if
Build it into the, I got you.
build it in. So I don't know if, when we have to do our grant, obviously the sooner we get the paperwork in, the better.
Well, it won't work. So it's just capital. So this is all different. So they wouldn't, well, I'm not the expert here, but I know this will work. I simply couldn't tell you exactly why not.
So that can't be considered part of the soft cost.
For when you apply for state funding, even if it's a grant application, there's a limit on what you can get. So this program is based on a pupil count. So you get $1 per pupil, and even though we are housing them and it costs us more to build these facilities, they still give us a 25-to-1 pupil grant amount. So it's a $600,000, use it how you want, but it really goes into Fund 35 when you get it. It's for capital only, so for any additional
So Bill's
operational.
earlier question was, do we get 50%, whatever? So if it was 7.4 million or 7.3, we're not getting 50% of that. We're getting something that is very hard
You're
counting.
getting the 3.6.
Okay, so it really doesn't matter.
That's not the
So then it
exact
doesn't
number,
matter.
but
I mean,
yes.
it matters. It doesn't matter to what I was trying to get up, making sure we maximize our ask from the state.
I'm wondering, is there a separate fund that could help to address the needs that were presented by all the teachers? So if there's a different place that you can look.
Yeah, yes, there is. So that's what we just have to decide if that's an expense that we want to make as a school district.
Do we need to have more conversations about that and what that would, like, before we approve this, like, do we need to know that we can, because I think we would probably want to do that, right? Do we know that we can?
I don't know. I think that I need to have further conversations to understand, one for every classroom versus, because initially we talked about one. So I think that we should separate this, honestly. How we get there is, I think, a different discussion than the project is something we should do. Tonight is, that's my personal feeling.
Okay, and then a question I had is, I know we've talked about kind of we have conceptual ideas. It sounds like we know what we're doing here.
This, we know what it's looking like. We have an idea of how we want the buildings laid out, where the playground is. Yes, this is less than conceptual.
Okay, and kinder is going in the 2-story building.
Correct.
So second floor to, first floor.
First floor, they have to go
Okay,
first.
that has been confusing me recently.
Can't be on the second floor if you're
Okay,
undergraduate.
so it'll be other classes on the second floor.
Correct.
Okay.
I believe it's 3rd grade. Yeah.
Okay, well, I will just say I have so much respect for Cali and kinder in particular, having been, I started my public education career in Cali kinder.
Look at your product. Just a few years ago, the kindergartner in Cali.
Well, quite a few years ago now. But, and it's kind of was always a dream in the back of my mind of like, what if you could expand, bilingual education to TK or even to preschool. So to see it come to fruition now is really, really exciting, and to see who's going to be running it, it just makes me so excited. At the same time, I know we've heard concerns in the past, and I don't want to gloss over those about just how impacted Cali is and how difficult it is to, I have a child at Cali now. There's kind of always been construction happening there as long as I can remember, and it's just hard because you're planning things that are always going to benefit someone else. And so, but I think that's just how we do it, and it does end up, our kids are benefited, who are there now are benefited by sacrifices that were made before. But it is hard, especially coming out of COVID to say, and I think we really need to think about, I have been thinking a lot about Cali because it's really hard to learn another language over distance learning for those who were not native speakers. So just how can we support those students who kind of missed a couple years, especially who had the Zoom and then the masks, and it all kind of culminated in definitely a difference. Having two kids who one kind of had mastered Spanish more before, to another one who kind of was more at that learning stage during, just if we could think about that too in the context of this whole thing. That's my comments. Good to see you all.
Just the last quick thing I want to say is that I appreciate the fact that these are two separate issues. But I also want to say that the teachers that are here tonight that have spoken up, these are some of the best teachers that we have, in our district. So I really think that this list that they provided to us needs to be a high priority. It's really, really critical. Especially I can't imagine, having one IA for, however many classes that there are. That's a lot of classes and a lot of kids. So I think that this needs to be really urgent, high priority.
Understood. There's an intention to work with them. I hope they know that.
Paul, do you have any comments?
Well, I wasn't gonna make comments, but since you put me on the spot.
You can say no, let's vote.
No. I've recently actually subbed in a teaching classroom, so I commend what you do. They did have an aide. I don't know what I would have done if there wasn't an aide in there. And I'm just gonna leave it at you guys do a phenomenal job. I'm gonna leave it at that. So they need aides.
Okay, so, with that, I think we are at the point where we could entertain a motion to approve the proposal to design the new kinder area, understanding that there's a memo of sort of programmatic and staffing pieces which will get feedback on. There'll be liaison between the district office with the Cali principal and the Cali TK team, to the extent that needs to come back to us, because there may be flexible funding and resources that we allocate down and we don't micromanage these things. We certainly could, let's hear about this next board meeting, one way or the other, right? So you guys will know we will do that. But I do suggest and recommend to my colleagues that we need to act on the proposal to take the steps as outlined to us so that we can, again, get that portion of money that Rich Carnation so loves, that if we can ultimately downstream get $600,000 per classroom, that is a really good thing.
Leave no stone unturned.
Yeah.
One thing I just want to point out to everybody, and it's a concern of mine, is that Austin and I mean, our district staff has done a really good job of scraping off the frosting off of everything we have to make this work. And my typical fiscal conservative nature would be that this is, we're depleting all of, on the, we have two pots of money. We have the general money that comes in every year, and then we have this facilities, I'm gonna just call it type of money. One time, we're taking most of that out for this. That said, I have always felt as though Cali was the one, this is before I got on board, that Cali was a place that always seemed to be a little bit neglected. It just looked neglected as I would drive by, not really understanding even how special the place is. And then I was kind of a typical parent, I was a chicken, to have my kids go there because I didn't speak Spanish. I thought, how am I going to help my kids with homework? Being on the board now, I've learned what a dynamic amazing place that is. I mean, we want to send our grandson now to Cali, right? And so all those things said, I think that this is, we've already had the other building that's going in there. We've made significant capital improvements and investments there at Cali. I think this, though, while it really depletes us in a lot of areas, it's worth the investment. Not because I want to send my grandson there, but because everybody's kids go there. And the program, the proof is in the pudding. I mean, it's stellar. The product, our kids that keep coming out of there, everywhere I go, people go, oh, you guys are the ones that have that Spanish school. I mean, it's all over the place. So that's it. I just want to make sure we understand that we don't have anything left over to do anything else until new funding comes in. This is taking everything off the Thanksgiving table.
So we still have some in deferred maintenance, but nothing in development. So,
Correct.
Yeah.
Right, and half the balance that's left in the bond fund, more or less. So, with that, I would entertain an alumni motion if she would like to make it from somebody who didn't get the chance to go to TK at Cal.
I will move to approve this project.
I'll second.
Okay, thank you, Mallory. We have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, well, congratulations, ladies. Thank you for coming. We now will do the important thing about how to get half that money in state funds. So that is approved. Appreciate that 5-0. Thank you for your patience and staying.
Thank you, guys.
Austin, you are going to talk about the resolution 2023-07 for the California Preschool Transitional Kindergarten and Full Day Kindergarten Facilities Grant Program, of which we had heard much.
Yes. The other thing too about that last item that I want to also mention is that we'll be working now with Trent and Jen, because Jen is a part of Van Pelt, and so we just approved the CASA. So it's cool to have the same team working on this.
The gift that keeps on giving.
That's right. Yes, this is the resolution to apply for eligibility for the TK grant. This is very similar to the last one that we approved. We did not get a great score, but for this one, we are hoping to hopefully do better. This is the second round out of 3 possible rounds. And yes, even if we approve it now, we get approved, we get going, and we some of the funds up front, which is great. We would never get that. So
So can you talk about why we think we have a better shot? The fact that everybody has to be funded once before we're funded twice.
correct. Yeah. So other districts can put multiple projects on the table to be funded by this. But once they're already funded once, everyone else has to now be funded before it comes back around. So we kind of knew in the first funding round, we probably weren't going to get funded. But now that we're on the second one, the probability is a lot higher because all those first ones now have to wait for us to go through. So yeah, we should be next level in this / following.
Does that same logic,
Does that not first in line, but everybody gets funded first before you can come back again? Is that for this particular type of deal? Because then Jim said, or is it, because what I'm trying to find out is, let's say we put this in and now we get funded, right? Then in a couple of years, whenever we put on our big bond, does that now
different pots and
different one? Okay, I just want to make sure we aren't going to get 3.6 and we're flushing away 40 something. Okay.
This is an expedited, as I understand it, an expedited funding because of this mandate that this program's coming in immediately. And folks like us that are ready to go and pull the trigger can get a slice of the pie.
Yeah. And you can't piece it all together too. Yeah.
Right.
Thanks.
Any other questions from the board? Any comment from the public on item 3.4, or 5.4, the funding resolution? Okay, bringing it back, we would entertain a motion. This is, need a motion and a second, and because it's a resolution, we do a roll call. Jen?
I'll make a motion, we approve this.
I'll second.
Good. Roll call, please.
Neil Evans,
Yes.
Malala Lopez,
Yes.
Stephanie Long,
Yes.
Paul Capano,
Yes.
Rich Carnation.
Yes.
Wonderful. Go for it. Good to go. Good job. So that concludes our discussion action calendar. For routine information, we have item 6.1, our future board items calendar. I note again, we have an increasing parking lot. I will just read it so my colleagues can hear. We have, this is at the third page, the rolling calendar of board policies. Land acknowledgement, I'd like to talk some more with Trustee Lopez about that, and perhaps we can move a little bit on that. I thought it was very interesting when we were at that trustee event, but Herman Hernandez did the chair of the SCO board. Staff and student recognition, celebrating success to include students. Pillars of excellence, portrait of a graduate, the facilities master plan final report, let's put a line through that bad boy. The strategic arts plan and portrait of a graduate is on the second time, so we'll put a line through that. So, any other thoughts that came up? Thank you again. I wanted to give you a shout out during trustee reports, but nobody's here anymore. Dr. Pedro, who was the speaker at that event on February 6th, last Monday, is the Dean of the USC School of Education. In the midst of his remarks, after he acknowledged, I don't even know how old that trustee was, a 22-year-old trustee, and acknowledged an alumna of his, Trustee Lopez, who was a student when she was at Berkeley, and he was a professor there. So that was kind of cool that it didn't fall far from the tree. And I can see why you were so inspiring when you talked about it before we went, so thank you about that. Any other things for the board? Anything, Superintendent Decker, that we want to get a parking lot? Again, I will note, as I said, April 10, we have the multi-tiered system of support workshop. Is that going to be here with brother and sister districts, or? Okay, how many other organizations do we anticipate coming?
Healdsburg and Mark West Union.
Okay, ooh, an interesting consolidation opportunity.
Anyway, I was told that Healdsburg will probably have all the board members come, Mark West, or she's not sure.
Okay, let us know that. Yes, so we have three districts doing it together,
Three district study session.
And I was looking at my calendar, and I just want to be clear, because I know we have spring break coming up in March. What is the day of our March meeting? Is it March 9 or 16?
The week before the NCAA tournament.
Okay, because we know Carnation will be here because he's not going to be back in Iowa. Okay, so March 9, our regular meeting a week earlier, right? April 10 for our joint multi-jurisdictional meeting, and then April 20th is our regular meeting in April. So just make a plan of that.
And I have reached out to the town of Windsor for dates.
Yes, thank you. So I've been talking to Jen and Jeremy. And one of the things also we need to do, Madam Vice President, is we need to meet with the Vice Mayor and Mayor probably here in the next month or two, just set up an appointment. I think Jeremy, I know Jen, you're working with that. If you could talk to their secretary, Jeremy had a conversation with John Davis, the city manager. Again, that's part of our liaison duties, so I think that would be helpful. Just so you all know, I reached out and basically said, look, it'd be really nice if we could maybe think about joint meetings with the town twice a year. We had a pause because of COVID and the elections and everything else, but there's much going on. I think if we regularize that, then no surprises and joint progress together is good.
Bill, for the parking lot stuff, I either need a clarification, or if we can, two things. I want to say kind of marketing a little bit of some sort of, it's amazing to me how often I talk to people and they are not aware of a lot of the wonderful things about our district. So I'm trying to think if there's a way, and I am not a marketing person, so I don't know the ways you do all that stuff. And the radio thing doesn't seem to think, I think it's got to be more social media type things. People, that's where they do all their stuff, right? But that was the one thing. And then tying with that is what kind of donations we're allowed to get or not. And I hate to admit it, but I was asked today, can wineries make donations to the school? And I'm like, I think so, but I don't want to tell you yet until I ask.
That's just a board policy, so I can bring that board policy for discussion, or I can share.
Bring it for discussion. I think there is a consensus to it. Certainly clarify that the answer would be yes. It has not been that way in the past. So let's do that.
Okay.
Yeah, if we could, that'd be great.
Because I think having that as an elevator speech to folks, and then we need to have our short list to say, well, are you in the $1,000, $5,000, or $10,000 category? Because we can name a wrestling tournament or the, okay, or the human resources, wing of the district office. Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, so speaking of that, The We Foundation's breakfast is next Friday.
7 o'clock at Charlie's.
I will be in Bakersfield at the state meet cheering our little wrestlers on, and I will be there. But I want everyone to know that Trustee Ahmad has dutifully made sure that she extracted her pound before we leave.
So
So
last year as well, I believe you weren't there.
she's excellent. You know, that was somebody else that extracted. It seems to be, Bill, she's twice as good as you.
I know.
Donation.
Donation.
Donation, he
So,
wasn't there.
He wasn't there. He didn't find out until after I had to speak to his wife. Yeah, and on marketing communications, I mentioned to Heather, we had talked before about possibly having some of the public service announcements and whatnot being on the Channel 27 sort of rotating exhibit. In thinking about this, I will see if I can find one. The Nueva students, as part of their sort of marketing drafting, worked with SCO, and there was a multi-fold sort of progress to college brochure, really cool, well done, graphically designed. And seems to me with our digital arts core and our EdTech and things, we could have folks working with you, Heather, that could put out some of our marketing, branding, communication. You know, we have if you go on the website, there's a dated and less robust than we might like brochure statement. There's a summary that's even before the Sullivan regime at the high school about Windsor High School. So there's I think it's low hanging fruit. I really think it would be cool that we have our students help on that, right? Give them some things and say, through this year and through next year, let us be amazed what 16 to 18-year-olds are gonna do with stuff like that, so.
I'm gonna propose, President Adams, that we bring that back in April, because I think that gives us enough time. We're looking at a few different things with regard to the website and market.
Yeah,
So I think April.
all right. One more.
Mine was just going back to the policies. I won't get into too much detail, but I was at a Kaiser Park master planning session a few weeks ago. And the topic of being able to potentially host the fireworks event in our stadium came up, which kind of impacts, like, there's kind of thinking about space and the way space is used and preserving a big open space in Kaiser Park for this event that happens once a year that has to be fenced and you have to ticket people to come in, and it kind of seems like we have a space like that in our school district. But the question was, you seem like you're about to say something.
No, I'm gonna wait till you're done though.
Okay.
My mouth is moving.
But the question was, could we put on this, could the school district, if there was some kind of agreement with the town, put on an event that served alcohol in the stadium? Ever?
Not with kids, no.
So, yeah, and just to be clear, the fireworks are happening. I think they still plan on launching them off of our baseball fields. So we wouldn't be launching them over our $1 million turf field. The question was, can we put 1,500 watchers on the west side? Because they sit in the field, so you're not like under the mortars when they go off, but you are no closer, in fact, a little bit further away when you're in the west if you were in the home football stands watching, just like folks are sitting on the, where your kids play soccer, right?
Yeah,
And the question was, you know, because they sell tickets, right, and it is a fundraiser, could there be access to use those existing bleacher facilities? And the question was, well, a bunch of money is made by vendors who sell alcohol. And my thought is you could get like a non-alcohol, pay 2 extra security people, say, look, if you have alcohol, you can't come in here. If you have the wristband to come in, you just can't come in with alcohol to sit in here, but you can get these great seats if you'd like to come in there. So something to think about. You may hear about it from Olivia. We were at that Sherman's thing. That was what it was.
Yeah.
I'll make sure you guys have the board policy so you can read it. It's pretty clear.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And, you know, if it was not with students on campus, right? And it was a question of, well, is it during school time? Or if it was going to be on a holiday period, school's out, still could we not have minors go in there? I think as a family event, we probably would seem to be want minors with their family to go in and, you know, or do the kids have to stay out there? Right at the boundary of the school property where, you know, the VIP bleacher seats available for anybody who has to be over 21.
It's just interesting that, like, if you think about it conceptually, like across the street, you could build a fence and then have kids and their families go in and have that, and then we have this, and you can't do that, which maybe I think it's sounding like there's no workaround
Well,
around that.
Let's work. Yeah.
But-
this was a board policy that changed about 7 years ago,
Yeah.
so let's.
Well, I know it was a state policy that changed. It used to be an absolute ban.
Right.
Now,
So just
now
a
they're.
thought to like marinate on, because if that's an option, it kind of expands, I think, the town's thinking a little bit and what they can do with the rest of the space. So,
And possibly gives us a little bit more leverage in the Tyser Park master plan on some of the things that we're looking for that public-public partnership. So thanks for bringing that up. It's a good point.
To Stephanie's point, I think
Very quickly.
one of the council members' concerns was that if we did certain building in Kaiser Park, it would eliminate the ability to have the fireworks and stuff, so.
You should have come to the charrettes episode.
I will the next year. Anyhow, remember I was abundantly speaking. So anyhow, the question I have though is, I just want to make sure we're clear. The fireworks though are not, they're the little shells or whatever they are, they're not gonna land there's no chance for them to land on that turf field, right?
They're not going to launch them anywhere different than they have launched them before. They come from the outfield in the varsity space.
Okay, that was.
Right, if they were landing there before burning up our grass, they were the turf they were already doing.
Got it, okay, cool.
But, okay, we'll talk about that. Thank you for bringing that up, Stephanie, because that's a good public. With that, I would say we are adjourned, and it is not even 9:30 yet. Look at that. 9:28.
Oh.
I'm moving. Anything else?
Second.
Okay. Yippee, we all said 5-0. We are adjourned. Thank you, Jen. And thank you, everyone. And thank you for the folks who were here waiting patiently for public comment. Where did you go?
Hey, can we turn the heater up next time?
I know Bill's strategy is to freeze us out to get out of here. Oh my God, I feel very fattest guy in there freezing.
We need one of these rocket chairs. You cannot.
You can't move, really?
It is. I felt like I felt like I was falling forward.
Hey, Jeremy, is school out on Monday?
Yeah, right in.
Chair here.
Yeah, you want to get together breakfast lunch? or-
Good job.
Sure. Thank you.
Thank you.